Yes, sir.
Bear with us just a little bit, y'all. It's a new day. We're good? Good morning. Happy New Year to everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Nags Head Board of Commissioners, and it's Wednesday, January the 16th. I'd like to welcome everybody here this morning. If you'll join us in a moment of silent meditation. Amen. For join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to recognize our new videographer, Corey. Good luck with everything. I know it's the first day, but we know it'll go smoothly for you. Thank you. Our first item is the adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. This is the time that we set aside for audience response. If you would like to come up, please give us your name and address and come to the podium. Sir.
Hello again, I'm Louis Toth, and I live in the Bay Meadow section of the village. I have two things. One is to give you a report on the ditch, which I talked about last time. The Homeowners Association has done its part. It came in with heavy equipment and a crew and cleaned out the ditch that runs through the village. Unfortunately, the golf course has not opened up the blockage that it created. And I'm asking your help, either individually and Cliff, to push the golf course to do its part. So that's the first issue. My second issue is feral cats, and I'm asking the town to change its current policy. That policy is if you have a complaint about feral cats, animal control will come over and trap them and bring them over to Dare County's animal shelter, keep them for 8 days, and then put them to sleep. So it's almost 100% of them are being put to sleep. There is a board member at the shelter in Manio who's pushing to have the cats trapped, fixed, give them a shot, and return them to the same location. And I think a lot of the vets are in agreement with that, because there are a lot of people I know who are feeding these cats and they don't create any problem for people. So I'm asking you to collectively maybe change the animal control policy to one that's more friendly towards the cats. It's in the same spirit that you did with the doggy bags on the beach and stuff like that. That says you are animal friendly, and I like that. Okay? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Willow Kelly. I'm a resident of Nags Head. I am also chair of the Coastal Studies Institute Foundation Board of Directors. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the town of Nags Head for the support of the Coastal Studies Institute. Yesterday was a big day for Coastal Studies Institute. It was the dedication of our campus in Skyco. And Mayor Bob Oakes did a tremendous job representing the mayors of Dare County and the elected officials here. I'd like to thank those that were in attendance yesterday. It was a great event. President Tom Ross of the University of North Carolina system was there to officially dedicate the campus. But I'd really like to take this opportunity, as well as thank you. I would also like to let the residents of Nags Head know that there will be an open house for the public on Saturday, February the 2nd from 1 to 3. There will be activities planned and tours of the building during that time, and we hope that as many people as possible can come out and see exactly what's happening on that campus. Some tremendous things will be taking place there. The research not only supporting here on the Outer Banks, but northeastern North Carolina, as well as globally. So there will be some tremendous things happening, and we would like for you to come out and see. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Thank you and Mr. Kelly for all your hard work on it. It's truly an impressive addition.
Excuse me.
As Commissioner Cahoon pointed out to me as well, though, that place would not be in existence without Senator Mark Bassnight. And we do all owe him a vote of thanks, enduring thanks, for making that happen. It will really, it's a great thing for our county.
Good morning. My name is Patty McKenna, and I'm representing the Outer Banks Relief Foundation. Thank you, Commissioner Sadler, for giving me this connection to the town of Nags Head to introduce the 211 phone number. You may not have heard of it, and I need everyone to have heard of it. It's a non-emergency human services helpline, available 24/7 in Dare County, multilingual. There's a call center in Durham, staffed by professional call center specialists who have a database in front of them full of information about Dare County that the Outer Banks Relief Foundation inputs. So the information is locally managed. And it's just a great resource that can take a lot of burden off of some of our local entities. Instead, when a 911 call comes in that's inappropriate for, it's not an emergency, they can be referred to the 211 number. The kinds of things you'll find are all kinds of the government assistance programs that exist, all the nonprofits located in the county, interfaith community outreach, the food banks, churches that have food banks. It's all at 211. And we can put in anything we want, really. It's an infrastructure that we can maximize. Recycling center information, non-emergency police numbers are really important to have there. So it's a very affordable information and referral line. It costs the Outer Banks Relief Foundation and the Outer Banks Community Foundation together are partnering to pay the bill $200 a month. And it started in April. And we're pretty confident that we have good information in there. So now we're kicking the marketing into high gear. We have call volume in the 20s, 20 or so calls per month. So we want to increase that dramatically and keep that information up to date daily. Volunteers at the Relief Foundation are on top of it, and we hope it can become well-known number and well-used number, and if there's anything that we can do, any information we can add to help the town of Nags Head, we'd be thrilled to. The police chief had our 211 flyers at the National Night Out in the summer, and we'll continue to work together. And here's some flyers for you. You can contact the Outer Bank Relief Foundation to reach me and follow up. Any questions about it? All right.
Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Great information.
Yeah.
Mr. White.
Good morning. It's my first time to get up here, even though I've been in, I think, almost every meeting of the commissioners for the last 8 years. I've got a couple of things that I would like to bring to your attention. There is a prescribed burn coming to the Nags Head Woods, and you have information. In your consent agenda, I was wondering if it was possible that could be highlighted by the fire chief during the meeting to let the residents of Nags Head know of the multiple burns that are happening. There's also going to be one in the Park Service area that affects Nags Head, especially for those people that live around Nags Head Woods like I do. The second thing is definitely wish to support the resolution for stormwater mitigation issues that you will be considering. And also you have a resolution in support of North Carolina coastal cactus. A concerted effort by all people are the type of things that will help us in all of the 17 counties of Northeast North Carolina. This is a request for the legislature, both Senate and House, to form a caucus of the counties that are affected, that affect us. And I hope you will pass that and urge other people to get involved in this. Part of that involvement was last night at the special meeting called by the Dare County Commissioners to consider Oregon Inlet, where they have formed a 7-member task force, 4 from the users group, 1 from the fishing park, fish park, 1 from 2 other agencies, with full support of that task force. They will require them to report, or at least be on the agenda of the county commissioners meetings beginning next Monday. There will be full support. This was fully supported by our representatives in the legislature and the federal government. This formation of this group, and there was considerable discussion last night of not only the economic impact of the closure of our inlet, but the fact that this used to be the #1 inlet in North Carolina. And I would hope that you would support that. One personal note, driving down here today, we are in the fog season. We have had pea soup and worse over the weekend. This extended all the way to Raleigh, where I spent the weekend. But coming down this morning, many of the vehicles out there on the road failed to have any illumination of their vehicle. State law requires that you turn on your lights when you turn on your wipers. That is your headlights. I'm a driver safety instructor for AARP. And one of the things we ask is that people look at the traffic a block ahead of them when they're traveling in urban areas and a quarter mile ahead of them when they're traveling in rural areas. This is basically an urban area if you're coming down 158 here. We also stress the fact of the state law. I would urge you to, and possibly the police chief, to put out something that at least your fog lights and your parking lights be on in fog. I could not see a car ahead of me 1 block ahead this morning. That's a safety hazard, and I would hope that the message would get out to the people and that you would back this safety factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. We appreciate it. And it was thick as pea soup this morning. Still is. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Richard Murphy. I live at 8817 South Old Oregon Inlet Road. I think it appropriate, since this is the first meeting of the year, that the commissioners be commended on their effort in sight of the opponents and the naysayers. Beach nourishment is alive and well. You guys should be complimented on making that happen, and our dune line now is building up. It's healthier than it's been in many years. The sand fence that the city installed last year in front of Marvin Demur's house and my house is completely buried. So there's at least 3 foot of sand that is built up on the dunes, and you are to be complimented, on this, and we need to do anything we can as a town and as commissioners to have the 1% sales tax re-implemented so that all of our neighboring towns will have the funds to do beach nourishment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And individuals can also plant beach grass out there in that sand, and that helps again. So it's not just a town effort, it's an individual effort as well. Other speakers this morning? Seeing none, we're going to close our public comment period. Next item is recognition. Ms. T?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. I am very pleased to introduce to you today Mr. Steve Zemansky. He joins the Planning and Development Department as our new building inspector. Steve has level 3 certifications as an inspector in all trades and disciplines. That's building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. He started his career as an electrician in the private sector working in the Outer Banks, but comes to us from Currituck County, where he served for 12.5 years as a building inspector. Steve is married, enjoys baking, which we've all enjoyed as well in the planning department, fishing, playing golf, and spending time with his grandkids. He comes highly recommended by those who've worked with him, and we're very fortunate to have him on our team. So welcome to Steve. Thank you.
Morning, we're glad to have you. For 20 years at least.
Steve, welcome aboard.
Ms. Albers?
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. We began a project a few years ago in Nags Head of inviting people to decorate for Christmas. And the first couple of years it was a little bit spontaneous and just happy. And then we decided to make it a little bit more organized and to start giving out some awards for the different decorations that people would do just to embellish our town and make things a little bit more joyful for everyone around. As things go, everything develops a little bit as you go on, and this year we decided to emphasize that it be the exterior of the buildings, so that it isn't just people who usually decorate inside, but also that people could drive by, take a look at things, and really have something to drive through our town and enjoy the streets and the festivity that we're all enjoying inside and outside. So this year we came up with a little bit of a structure for it in which that we designated some categories, and a committee was formed by Marty Moore to celebrate different aspects of the embellishments. So we set up categories for what we called the Griswold Award, which was, if you've ever seen the movie, a little bit on the tacky side with a great festivity, a great beach theme for the joy of it, and we actually had another category too, but we found that there were 2 winners in the for joy of it category. So we're not even going to get to the other one. We will continue this in the years to come, and hopefully more and more people will join in this, and then signs were planted in front of those houses designating who were the winners in those categories and putting it onto our blog and our website and into the paper so that people could go by and also enjoy the winners. So I would like to commemorate those people that have actually participated in this process and congratulate them for embellishing our town during this festive season. First of all, in the category of beach theme was the Sea Green Gallery on the beach road. Is anyone here from that establishment? You will see the picture on the screen. They had an incredible beach theme situation. They had a Christmas tree that was all made out of driftwood that was all embellished with shells and different types of found objects from the beach. And all of them were then also made into wind chimes that when the breeze blew, it was all very much a sound issue too. And then there also was all over the front of the building were all kinds of things. There were hand-strung oyster shells and all kinds of things, and the windows just full of things that are things that were found in our community that are known to be representative of our architectural styles and all kinds of things that were embellished for Christmas. And it was quite an outstanding display, and I think that they could be looked forward to in years to come to do something comparable. For the joy of it, there were actually two winners. One was Daryl Moore, and down in South Nags Head, and actually they were not in South Nags Head. I apologize. This one was on Windjammer, and this was a beautiful house that was really very much decked out, really emphasized the architecture and everything, but then also had some beautiful things in the yard that were just really fun and just made us all very happy as we drove by. I would love to present this to you, and thanks for all of the hard work that they actually put into putting this together, because it was really beautiful. Would you like to accept? Thank him for us very much. Also in the Joy of It category was Jockey's Ridge Crossing. And this was quite spectacular. Huge amount of lights, and also an incredible amount of dedication to getting all of that outlined way up onto the precipice of that rooftop. And it really was fun. Everything was wrapped and wonderfully lit up. Another entrance that we had in this category was equally as wonderful. Unfortunately, some of the lights actually blew on Village Realty, so we weren't actually aware of that as we went through. We encouraged Dory Fuller next time to check the circuit breakers, and hopefully they will enter again next year. But is there anyone here to accept the award for Jockey's Ridge Crossing?
John Harris couldn't be here today, so I'm marking director. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, and please thank him for the effort in doing this. The community enjoyed it very much. And for the Griswold Award, which was the Tacky Christmas Award, we had also for Frank and Annette McCargo. Is anyone here to accept that? Oh, wonderful. I have to tell you about this. We enjoyed this so much, we all got out of the car and walked around this house. This was incredible. All of those little lights you see lined up around the driveway are all little Santas facing you like this. And there was just everything you could find that was part of Christmas, from religious artifacts to pigs on seesaws to, I mean, there was just boats, fish, everything. It was incredibly well put together, and we had a great deal of enjoyment, and I'm hoping that a lot of other people in the community came out to see it also. And I encourage you to do it again next year because it was so much fun. So this is for Frank and Annette McCargo.
Hey, you've got to tell people where Crocker Road
Thank
is.
you so much. And Roger Smith could not be here today to accept this, but this was another one of our winners in for the Joy of It, and this was at South Oregon Inlet Road, and this one was incredibly creative. Gail Kowalski, who was part of our committee, just went crazy over those peacocks that are right in the front of the stairs. What you can also see from this picture is that the lot, since it's so deep, had layers and layers and layers and layers of it going back, almost like waves that rolled up to the house, and it was incredibly beautiful. And for everybody on Oregon Inlet Road down there, it was just a beautiful thing to behold. And I'm sure that everybody enjoyed it going all the way down to milepost 19 and a half. So thank you very much to Roger, even though he cannot be here. All right. Thank you so much, and we hope to continue this experience in the years to come, and hopefully more people will participate in it.
It's a great bit of holiday spirit for the town, and Majid, thank you very much, you and your group of volunteers.
That's cool.
Our next item is the consent agenda. We do have something about the prescribed burns on here. I'm going to ask
Well, we can still adopt a consent agenda, just have the fire chief come up and give a brief overall of his, of the process.
He's coming up later, so we'll get him when he comes up later, if that's all right.
So, I mean, we can still, we can still move to accept the consent agenda.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is a public hearing to consider adoption of a zoning ordinance text amendment submitted by the planning board for specific lighting standards, lighting of outdoor recreation facilities.
All right, we'll begin the public hearing to consider this matter at this time. I'll remind the board that on this and the other public hearing we're going to have in a little while, the board sits as a legislative body in these, therefore sworn testimony is not necessary. But we will begin with the presentation of the staff's analysis provided by Kelly Wyatt.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. You're correct, this is an amendment to the lighting ordinance, but we've had quite a bit of process up until this point, and it all began when Mr. Darnell Tillett came before the board to reduce the parking standard for go-kart tracks in an effort to provide some additional parking for amusement rides. That text amendment was heard and recommended for adoption by the Planning Board and subsequently adopted by the Board of Commissioners. There was then a text amendment to allow outdoor amusement rides and games as a conditional use within the Outdoor Recreation Overlay District, and that was also adopted. So now we're at the point of establishing a lighting standard for the outdoor amusement rides. And as requested by the Planning Board and the Board of Commissioners, staff has brought to your attention today 2 options for your consideration. The first option provides standards based upon the height of the amusement ride. The second option is an exemption from the lighting standards for amusement rides entirely. The first option would exempt rides less than 20 feet in height from the lighting regulations. In essence, any part of the ride below 20 feet could flash and blink. Rides 20 feet in height or greater shall not display any flashing or blinking lights, and this would capture a ride such as a Ferris wheel. Regardless of the height, all rides should be set back a minimum of 20 feet from all property lines, and a 10-foot tall fence should be erected along property lines abutting residential uses. The Planning Board recommended a change to this language in which you could also utilize a 10-foot tall existing mature vegetated buffer in lieu of that 10-foot tall fence. The current lighting ordinance places limits on light levels measured from the property line for any outdoor recreational use. Horizontal illumination shall not exceed 0.1 initial foot candles adjacent to residential uses, and vertical illumination shall not exceed 0.6 initial foot candles adjacent to residential uses. Kim Allen, our lighting guru, he is here today. He's been documenting lighting levels throughout the town, and specifically he did go out to Full Throttle Speedway and take some measurements there. Vertical illumination along West Forbes measured 0.19 foot candles, which is well below the 0.6. Also, the ordinance already prohibits lighting from recreational uses to be kept on beyond 11:30 p.m. And as I mentioned, the second ordinance provided it's an exemption entirely that would permit various types of lighting and would not limit lighting levels to a foot candle reading. Staff feels like this is an acceptable option, and if you wish, it could be further regulated by putting those time limits, such as a seasonal limit. At their December 18th, 2012 Planning Board meeting, the board voted unanimously to recommend adoption of text amendment option number 1, specifically cross-referencing the existing ordinance as it relates to vertical and horizontal illumination, and also providing that language on utilizing a 10-foot tall existing mature buffer in lieu of a 10-foot tall fence. Staff recommends adoption of either of these ordinances. We feel that they're both adequate, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Mr. Tillett is here as well.
All right, does the board have any questions for Ms. Wyatt? None? All right. All right, thank you, Ms. Wyatt.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tillett, do you have anything you wish to present on this?
I really don't have a whole lot to add. I think everybody's real familiar with what we're doing. Obviously, the option 2 was what we would love to have, but we would. I feel like it's in y'all's hands now, and we'll graciously accept whatever y'all decide on. If you have any questions.
All right, any questions for Mr.
Answer any questions.
Tillett?
The significant difference between option 1 and 2 that affects y'all the most?
Excuse me?
What is the significant difference between 1 and 2 that affects y'all the most?
Well, the flexibility, one, of being able to bring in whatever we can find out there that would, best suit what we're doing. The lighting is, they come as they are, and so it is difficult to change that. Our feelings, if we want a carnival, let it be what it is, I guess is what, I don't know how to explain it. I've tried to compare it to things, but just let it, if we want a carnival, let it be a carnival. I don't know how else to say it.
I do have a question. Darnell, are you going to lease these rides or are you going to buy them?
Lease.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I do have one question. Darnell, is it
Yes.
theoretically possible to buy and I'm going to get specific and maybe I shouldn't, but it relates to the Ferris wheel. Is it possible to find one with static lighting?
It does not come that way, not that I'm aware of. You would have to change it.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Tillett? All right, anything further, Mr. Tillett?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Anything from the planning board on this proposal?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'd like to give you a little bit of background behind the recommendation. So we just didn't pluck it right out of the air. Last month, you asked the planning board to look at lighting requirements for the recreational rides. We've looked at the issue, including a personal visit up to MacArthur Center in Norfolk, where these rides are located. And after that, we came up with a proposal that we did. We're proposing that the flashing lights be allowed on rides under 20 feet. One, in that they're not lighting the night sky up that much, but also the rides that we looked at, and which Mr. Tillett is proposing, are kiddie rides, and the flashing light on those are not that bright and are not that rapid that they should disturb the neighbors. And that also gives the kids a carnival atmosphere, in that they do have some flashing lights on the rides that they have. And we're also proposing that the lights above the 20 feet be static lights. And I believe that the Ferris wheels that we looked at could very readily be converted to static lights from that flashing lights. We also propose that the lighting levels at the property lines remain as they are in the current ordinance, and that's 0.1 horizontal foot candles, 0.6 vertical foot candles, and no lights after 11:30. In addition, we propose that 10-foot high barrier between this, with a 20-foot setback from the boundary lines of a 10-foot high barrier between these facilities and the additional residential property owners. And that barrier could be either natural vegetation or a newly constructed fence. And in Mr. Tully's case, that would be a 10-foot high natural barrier that already exists there. Do the commissioners have any questions for us?
Any questions for Mr. Edwards?
Thank you very much.
But, I'm sorry, about easily converted from flashing to static. Would,
Yeah, but the light package they had on there didn't look that complex that it couldn't be converted. I go back to the old time Ferris wheels when they didn't have flashing lights, they had the 60-watt bulbs.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Thank you, sir. All right, does anybody else wish to comment? Any member of the public wish to comment on this proposed text amendment? If so, this is your opportunity to do so. Anybody at all? Does the board wish to receive any further information about this proposed text amendment before it begins its deliberations? All right, if not, we will conclude the public hearing at this time, and the board may begin its deliberations on this proposed text amendment.
Have you broken that computer in? Sorry. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, let me start off by saying, I don't...
Let's get a brief recess and let the technical difficulties get fixed. We'll take 2 minutes, okay? We're going to bring our meeting back to order. We were in the process of discussing our public hearing on the zoning text amendment to lighting standards for lighting of outdoor recreation facilities. Commissioner O'Malley, Mayor Pro Tem O'Malley, I'm sorry I cut you off because of our technical difficulties.
Okay. First of all, I appreciate the planning board's efforts and all that they've done on this issue and everything else that they do. However, I was interested to hear that staff does not lean one way or the other as far as the recommendation goes, whether you use option 1 or option 2. I also was checking with the manager about the possibility of what kind of complaints we would have in the future if we went with option 2 versus option 1. I think that the board is well aware of my position, what was my position with Dowdy's was originally, and with another amusement park, I've been an advocate of getting a small type of amusement facility back in the town of Nags Head. I'm glad to see that Darnell is offering something, and I think that we should do everything that we can possibly do to help. Now, that being said, I think that if we just go with option 2 and then do the wait and see thing, see if we have any, if there is an issue with it, and then come back. In other words, what I'm saying is let's work with Darnell on trying to get these things done, and get a nice something that we all like back in the town of Nags Head as an amusement facility that will help. Draw people. I can say since Dowdy's closed, I've had more complaints. If there are any complaints at all in the town, it's not having a facility for the kids to go to, and we've had other people come to the town looking to possibly facilitate bringing an outside show in and so forth and so on, and the same issues would have come up then too with the lights and the height and the other thing. So therefore, for the sake of conversation and for the sake of doing everything that the town can do, that we can do to help a local guy, a local businessman, get the job done, and I would recommend that we go with option 2, and that's just my position.
Well, a lot of people that have a little heartburn about the options that we're looking at are really people that would rather not come and voice themselves publicly. And I can appreciate that. There are some things that I would prefer not to talk about or to complain about to my fellow commissioner on tape. However, I do. There is, excuse me, and let me just say this, the planning board has done a wonderful job. Bob, you really have done a great job with the options. I think we have, I don't think it's a question of not having amusement rides. I think it's what we can begin with to see how it plays. And Dowdy's Amusement Park, when I came here, was a roaring success in this late 60s, and continued to be until whatever. But at that time, I will also remind the board that there were not a whole lot of people here in those early years, or even with Dowdy's demise. There was not the number of year-round residents that we have here today. So we need to take in consideration affording the opportunity to come back for amusements. We also need to take in consideration there are a lot of people that live here in the summer as well as the winter that perhaps would not be using the amusement rides. And I will share with you some of the negatives that I've had people call and talk to me about that just would prefer not to come today at the public hearing. One is that a Ferris wheel, and I think we've come to a pretty good solution as far as Ferris wheel. We're allowing one ride higher than 35 feet. 60 feet is 6 stories. I believe that's the height of the Comfort Inn. And when you put that out there, you can actually see it when you cross the bridge from Manio coming into Nags Head, particularly if you have blinking lights, it would stand out. And you can see it from the very end of South Nags Head because the Ferris wheel at the carnival was seen that far. So I don't agree with the idea of a blinking lights on Ferris wheels if they can be static lights. The other issue is the ordinance, as the planning board has suggested, does state that any amusement rides that are above, let me see if I can get that. Outdoor amusement rides 20 feet in height or greater shall not display any flashing, intermittent, or blinking lights. And when you look at some of the rides, and Darnell did point this out to me, when you look at some of the rides that he may consider in the future, some of those rides are above 20 feet, say, 35 feet, I think was the foot that he mentioned to me. If you have a ride 35 feet, that's actually as high as our homes are allowed here. 35 feet, of course, we can go to 42 feet if your roof is, certain, whatever. I do feel that with the comments that I've had, which have been a few, that we need to begin softly and keep rides above 20 feet not having blinking lights. I think there is a number of rides out there that are 20 feet in height or less that could have blinking lights because they wouldn't be so obvious blinking. So again, I have to commend the planning board on coming up with this. I know it was a difficult job. We threw it in your lap, 2 months ago, and you've really come up with a plan I think that will work. It will not please everyone, no ordinance does, but it will please those people that have contacted me as well as it will give Darnell an opportunity to see for the first year what he can bring in, how it works for him, and there's always room for improvement on an ordinance. So this, to me, is a positive step in the right direction to get a carnival back for the kids, and I wish him a lot of luck. Thanks, Neil.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Commissioner Graham?
I actually came to the planning board meeting to hear their discussion, and it was very insightful, very meaningful, and got a sense of what the passion was as well. The one thing that was the impetus for this was the town's 50th birthday party and the fact that a carnival was successful and everybody wanted it. I guess I'll be the difficult one. I see, while I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem's comments, I see kind of merging somewhat ordinance 1 and 2 together. Where I am is, in ordinance 1, we talk about 35 feet, so where I am is exempting anything under 35 feet from the lighting standard. Anything over 35 feet shall be limited to 1 in nature. And this is not a motion, I'm giving you my thoughts of where I am. And for the period of 1 year, exempting the Ferris wheel so that we can come back and review it after we see what happens after a year. And see what is brought in, see how it works, see how the community reacts to it. I'm not saying anything under 35 feet, I'm just saying for that one item that's over 35 feet, is reviewing it after a year, make that, have a sunset clause on it if it works, renew it in perpetuity if it doesn't, take it away. But that's pretty much my thoughts. The only other thought I had, and I appreciate the attorney's comments about, instead of saying after 11:30 or shall be cut off at 11:30, having a more particular time frame that was in ordinance 2, which was mine keeps rolling really fast, 9 a.m. and 11:30 p.m. But I would further add on the months of May 15th through September 15th. That's in keeping with the season of where children are here, and if we want to make it a family atmosphere, that's the months that the families are going to be here. They're pretty much not going to be here before May 15th, and I just don't like set Memorial Day, Labor Day, because those dates move around. And I just soon everybody know, instead of having to look at a calendar, have it set from, because you actually start getting busier May 15th and it runs pretty much through September 15th. So those are my thoughts.
I think I said last time, it's hard to make a Ferris wheel not look like a Ferris wheel. I would support Commissioner Cahoon's position here. I will remind the board that there are only 4 of us here today. In order for this to take effect, at this point in time, it does need to be a unanimous motion. Unanimous vote. Susie, Commissioner Walters did write a little note somewhat in support of having the Ferris wheel, and I think it was supportive of something like this compromise.
And actually, we all got that email, and she would like that email really entered into the record. Even though she's not here, it's just, she would like that made part of the record.
Should we read that out loud to do that, or?
That would be that's what I'd recommend.
That would be the best way to do it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bear with me just a second.
Got it.
You got it. Would you mind reading it, Cliff? Thank you.
Sir. This email was sent to the board, to the mayor, let's see, on January the 15th.
Good evening. I regret that I cannot be at the meeting tomorrow. If appropriate, I have the following comments. We have agreed to allow amusement carnival-type rides in the recreational overlay district. These rides are manufactured to attract attention of the young at heart, with a variety of colored lights, both blinking and static. I hope we will be reasonable with regards to expectations of the lighting, as we cannot expect these rides to be manufactured to our specifications. They are leased and moved from location to location throughout the year. Additionally, I support allowing the lighting of the amusements under 35 feet to be without restricted lighting unless a combination can be reasonably made by the manufacturer or broker. Furthermore, I support allowing the dates of operation for 125 days to include Memorial Day and Labor Day. This allows the business owners the flexibility to negotiate their lease according to availability as the equipment moves from location to location. The dates may not remain constant from year to year. Again, if appropriate, please share my comments with the board. Thank you. Says Susie, but Commissioner Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Yes.
Other comments from the board? Anybody care to make a motion?
I will. I'm going to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2 with the following changes. That paragraphs out of ordinance 1, item 3 and 4 and 5 be put into ordinance 2, and that furthermore, those lightings, let me make sure what it says down. I keep having to scroll back and forth, sorry. That item 7 out of ordinance 2, that where it says outdoor amusement rides shall be exempt from all lighting regulations, that shall be below 35 feet. And that the add-on in that shall be between May 15th and September 15th. And that for the one item above 35 feet that is allowed, that shall have a 1-year sunset clause for review. Effective that the review shall take place no later than November 1st, 2014.
Are you putting the dates in there that it can?
Can y'all get all that in writing for us on the screen? I see working hard.
While she's working on that, Ms. Cahoon, would you, with respect to the sunset provision, I suggest that that be put in as part 3.
Okay.
Simply saying that this, and I would say,
And the sunset provision only applies to the equipment, the one piece that was over 35 feet. It did not apply to any of the smaller stuff. It applied to one because that's the one that's of the most conversation, shall we say? And the reason I put a review date is because September 15th is the date it goes away. Well, before I talk, is there a second?
You what?
Huh?
Oh, I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
Purposes
Before I
of discussion.
answer questions.
Yeah,
Sorry. The reason I put November 1st is that gives time for the ride to go away, people to reflect, and then be able to come to a meeting after they're no longer busy and they've had time to think about it. And I don't want us as a board to forget, oh gee, we're supposed to take a look at this and get input back. It gives time for members of the community to have input and think about how they want to bring that input forward, rather than doing it the day it ends. And I gave about 6 weeks to think about it. So if that made any sense whatsoever. And it gives the person that has it 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 13 weeks. Well, it runs through the 2013 season, and the year after that would be 2014. Oh, no, you're right. Excuse me. Sorry, Mr. Edwards, you're exactly right. My motion should be November 1st, 2013, not 2014. My apologies for review.
Right.
Thank you very much. But it also gives the people that operate time to
Can
get their thoughts together
can
as
I ask
well.
a question?
Yes,
Please.
you,
Darnell, is it your expectation to have this thing up and operational this year?
Oh, yes.
that's why
It's fine, fine.
and I try not to be real onerous with any of the stipulations. I have concerns about the lighting, but I'm willing to look at it after a season and evaluate it for the Ferris wheel. I think anything under 35 feet, that's an average house height, a little bit less when you count the roof line. And looking at other things that are above 35 feet that cast lights onto a lot of other properties in neighborhoods, I don't find that so particularly onerous.
As to the review date, Ms. Cahoon, I'm wondering if you want to use a date that would include the November meeting, which would be on November 6th.
Absolutely, I just don't have a calendar.
That's what I'm looking for here. I'd suggest you use say review by November the 6th, because that's when the November meeting would ordinarily be.
Would my seconder be amenable to that? Thank you.
Further discussion, Commissioner Sadler, is this something that?
Is this something that does not give me hard work?
Is this a compromise that's acceptable?
Well, I know that we're four today, and I know it has to be unanimous, and I know that Darnell is pushed and has been pushed with his deadline, and feeling that Commissioner Walters would probably support what Commissioner Cahoon has said. I will just say this. The only part of this ordinance that still makes me a little uneasy is the allowing of all rides up to 35 feet to have flashing, blinking lights. Saying that, I encourage anyone who's looking at this meeting today or listening to it or sees the rides this summer, please, if you have concerns, let the board know by the 1st of November. And not just me, but I'm probably going to have to support this because I would really like to see Darnell have the opportunity to get something going right now for the summer.
Commissioner Green, did you have a further amendment?
I've got an amendment, and I probably shouldn't have tried to merge
too much
one into two, but two into one. I'd like to add that items 1 and 2 from the ordinance 1 be included as well, about the parcel must have a minimum lot size of 3 acres, and that amusement rides including Ferris wheels shall be permitted in accordance with Town Code 4881B6, exclusions from height. Probably merged the wrong one into each other,
That's okay.
but I want to make sure it still gets covered.
And I'll be happy to second that amendment.
Thank you.
Does that also get that 10-foot buffer?
Yes, yes, I had already
See,
included
I've lost my communication again.
I had already included the 10-foot buffer, so yes, it does, and I like the fact that the planning board allowed mature vegetation to be counted instead of just wiping it out. I applaud that thought a lot. Because I know what happens when you take away the mature vegetation. And I feel sure the owners appreciate the fact that they work very hard to grow those buffers to maturity.
So is that an amendment that needs to be, did you do that?
The seconder said that's fine.
Okay.
We are trying to get it all down in writing and in front of us on the screen so that we all know exactly what we've got.
And I apologize for my not getting it all concise.
I'm trying to get it right, and I appreciate it.
I'll bring my own laptop next time. It won't do it again. See?
The only thing I tell you is don't buy Windows 8.
I've heard that. I've read that before, actually.
Oh. I just got it out, and it's awful.
I think I'm switching back.
Doug and
Y'all be patient with us. We are trying to make sausage.
Who's making changes?
Weird.
Elizabeth.
I actually did some independent study on Ferris wheels, so I've got several pictures. There's one in London that looks to be about 600 feet tall. It towers over. Great ride. I was a little scared of that one, actually.
The one in Myrtle Beach is, I don't know, how big is that? Yeah. I was impressed with that. I mean, that was, and that's right on the ocean, right dead on it. No, that's,
There's a really good one you can buy in New Jersey. It's in the water.
Yeah. It's huge.
there's a name for it. I'm trying to, what's it called? There's a name for the one in London.
I don't remember.
The Eye?
The London Eye.
The Eye, yeah.
Mayor, I will tell you, I had hoped that the manager would have his staff go to Norfolk, i.e. our lighting guru and his sidekick sitting there, would go up there and bring us back some information. But I think I waited too late in my request to have that done.
I took my wife on that one. She's not a big roller coaster fan.
That one you're completely enclosed. Yeah, you can get in the cab of that thing and have dinner.
You can walk around in there, stand up?
Yep. Yeah, they've had people get married on that ride, and oh yeah. They've had people get married on that ride.
All right, I think we're ready. All right, I think we're ready.
It's all rides between the hours of 9 and 5, 9 and 11:30, not just one. Okay.
Y'all, it's all rides between the hours of 9 and 11:30.
Not just one.
Y'all, it's all rides between the hours of 9
It's November
and 11:30.
6th.
And it's November 6th.
It's November 6th.
And it's November 6th.
Let's make it November 6th.
November 6th,
November 6th.
2013.
That's got it.
No.
November
And it's
6th.
all rides. It doesn't.
Middle of the paragraph there, right?
No. And it's all rides. It doesn't.
Middle of the paragraph there, right?
They've merged it a little bit too much, but they've merged it a little bit too much.
Do we want to take a quick recess now and get this conferred? Let's do that. We're going to take 5 minutes and get this wording so that we've got the motion as the... Get this conferred. Let's do that. We're going to take 5 minutes and get this wording so that we've got the motion as the... A motion, an amended motion on the floor. We have it on the screen.
Not yet. We're getting there.
We're close to having it on the screen.
It's approaching the screen.
Clarification, since we're getting the final on the screen. Does this ordinance, this ordinance does refer to one Ferris wheel?
It refers to one ride over 35 feet.
Okay.
There it is. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, okay.
One ride over 35 feet. Okay. And that's the ride that can not have, it has to have static lighting.
Doesn't say that because we don't know what we're getting. That's why it's to be reviewed at the end of 1 year, or at the end of the season. Because we don't, the question was asked and we don't know that.
You can only have one ride no matter what it is, between 35 and 60 feet.
That is correct.
Right. This 1 year will have to be that.
One ride over 35. Is it all right if She'll be exempt.
No.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Just for the sake of sort of simplicity and getting things on the record, let me walk you through the changes we made. Let's actually start it back at the top. You'll see we've done a combined option 1 and 2 per Commissioner Cahoon's motion. If you scroll down just a little bit more, what we've done is maintained, keep scrolling please, maintained Part 1 as it was. This was the option that came from the Planning Board. If you would keep scrolling, please. So that has not changed. Where we did make some changes was in Part 2.
Wait.
Excuse me?
Elizabeth, let's go up to where you began with the red, please.
Okay. Keep going up. What is red and underlined was the recommendation that came back to you from the Planning Board.
Right, okay, I have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on, I think they're still reading. Sorry. You're fine.
7 is how I.
Okay, can they scroll down a little bit more?
Yes.
For Part 2, this was the part that came out of Option 2, and hopefully captured Commissioner Cahoon's suggestions.
That has blinking lights here as well. Is that what
Can you actually scroll down
did.
just a little bit
that
more?
Yeah, I
you
think
understood?
that's what I understood, that we were going to go for a year and see how, then review in a year.
We would hope that the owner would get as static as possible, but
Be sensitive to the neighborhood concerns.
So paragraph
You'll
7
be
here.
ecstatic when it's done.
Paragraph 7, as newly proposed, addresses amusement rides below 35 feet and provides an exemption from the lighting ordinance. We put a time frame on it that these exemptions shall apply between the hours of 9 a.m. and 11:30 p.m. and between the dates of May 15th and September 15th. Paragraph 8 is the one ride that's allowed over 35 feet in height per site shall be exempted from the lighting ordinance. And this exemption, again, shall be applied only between the hours of 9 a.m. and 11:30 p.m. and between the dates of May 15th and September 15th. This exemption shall expire after 1 year from the date of adoption and shall be reviewed no later than November 6, 2013. That is the sunset clause that you requested.
Can I ask you to pause for just 1 moment so I can clarify with Commissioner Cahoon? The exemption that you want to sunset, which one of the exemptions in paragraph 8, or is it all of paragraph 8?
it's all of paragraph 8, that the ride over 35 feet, because we want to review that at the end of 1 year.
The whole?
So that whole paragraph 8 would sunset and review no, but I don't think it's 1 year from adoption, because the 1 year from adoption would be after the review of
You're right.
November 6th.
You're right.
So I don't think that exemption date is correct, not 1 year from adoption.
Well,
Because
what you
if we review it November 6th, that's before May of, or January of 2014.
So let it expire November 6th and be
Yeah.
reviewed on.
Oh, excuse me.
Let's
Yeah.
say shall expire on and shall be reviewed no later than November 6th.
Right. That's,
Okay, shall expire
On.
on, and then strike after 1 year from the date of adoption.
That's correct.
I've had a request also from Commissioner Sadler that number 7 also have that option about expiration and reviewing again on November 6th.
So you would like actually the expiration on these exemptions to apply for both rides under 35 feet and above 35 feet?
It seems reasonable to look at it all when we're looking at
Yeah,
the one.
just-
Okay. To be here.
I'm about to say that too.
I mean, really, that was very poor planning.
November 6th. Or November 1. Gives you time to review
I
it,
find
no
that
later than
she's had
November
more
6th.
opportunities than anybody else. She went to Europe to get her degree and this and that. And I just find it wrong to be our one meeting day, no matter what day it is. Yeah.
Satisfied as to the wording of the motion?
And that includes both. 7's supposed to be included in that exemption.
Oh, I'm sorry,
paragraph as
then it
well.
should be then I would say the exemptions of paragraphs 7 and 8.
Okay. Of these paragraphs.
Take out, I'd just say, take out this altogether.
Yeah, take that out.
Paragraphs 7 and 8. There you go.
Okay.
And separately, parenthese, or whatever it is, 7 and 8. So put a closed paren after 7 and a begin paren in front of 8.
I don't think she understood what she said, John.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Commissioner Cahoon, is this your motion?
With your agreement as a second?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you okay?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. The motion passes unanimously. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bang that gavel. Our next public hearing.
All right.
To consider adoption of a zoning ordinance text amendment initiated by the planning board to increase allowable lot coverage within the SED 80 for institutional uses.
All right. At this time, we'll begin the public hearing on this proposed text amendment. And again, this is a matter in which the board sits as a legislative body. We will begin the public hearing with the presentation of the staff's analysis provided by Planning Director Elizabeth Teague.
Thank you, Mr. Leidy. Representatives of Colony Ridge approached town staff to discuss a request to initiate a text amendment to increase the current lot coverage allowance in SED 80 for the property that houses Colony Ridge. The purpose of this request was several. They wanted to expand the building front footprint at the front to provide an improved entranceway and some additional offices. They wanted to change and expand to some degree the driveway footprint of the front door to accommodate a new entrance and improve the accessibility and sort of the overall aesthetic of the front of the building. They also would like to relocate the dumpsters away from the front door and over to the side to create a green space. And they wanted to add a covered breezeway to connect the entryway and the front offices with direct access to the newly renovated rehab wing. These changes would provide aesthetic and programmatic improvements to the current facility, but will change lot coverage. Right now, under a variance, this facility actually already exceeds the allowable lot coverage for SED 80, and we estimated at 18.18%, the current amount, and they're asking for a 19.16% as proposed on their site plan. The maximum lot coverage across the board in SED 80 is 15%. Because the facility is part of the SED 80, we're trying to find a balance here between the renovation needs of Colony Ridge and the protective goals of the town's regulations for the district. We certainly want to be very sensitive to the environmental value of SED 80. And so we're hoping to protect the maritime forest and estuarine areas within the SED 80, but to still allow some flexibility in this area, which is not necessarily part of the formal Nags Head Woods, but is kind of on the edge of the SED 80 district. Additionally, right next door, as you know, is the old CSI building, as we call it. That building is about to go up and be part of your discussion for future lease arrangements. And it seemed natural that if we're going to allow some flexibility on one lot, the lot next door, which has a lot of the same situations, we might want to apply that to both town-owned facilities. However, we also don't want to extend these changes throughout SED 80. We want to sort of narrow it to the municipally owned facilities only. So that said, staff supports increasing lot coverage for municipally owned facilities in the SED 80 as long as it doesn't impact any AEC areas or estuarine areas. And we would support a lot coverage from up to 20% with an allowance for use of alternative materials up to 25%. We'd also support sort of a flat 25% increase. The planning board discussed it, and they felt strongly that they wanted to grant more flexibility to ensure improvements in Colony Ridge moving forward, and to make sure that the town wasn't standing in the way of making that facility a better place for our citizens who are using it. So they recommended allowing 25% allowable lot coverage with an up to 30% coverage with the use of porous surfaces such as turf stone, etc. It should be noted that this is the text amendment portion of this discussion. Any specific changes to the building will still have to come through the building permit process. We'll be addressing any structural issues, stormwater issues at that time. There are some opportunities here to actually improve some stormwater, and the group that will be doing these changes will have to offset any of the additional impervious surface runoff that's created by these changes, which is just under 1% of lot coverage. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, does the board have any questions for Ms. Teague? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cahoon.
Sorry, one, I have a question that since this is a zoning text amendment, it's very inappropriate to have a site plan as part of this, and I don't think that should be considered in any way, either as the board's discussion or on the screen, because this is not site-specific, and therefore we should not be considering a site plan as part of this discussion.
Okay?
You're absolutely right.
Fair enough.
All right, Ms. Sadler?
Elizabeth, was there any particular reason, I'm having the worst time today with my high-tech brain, that staff even took into consideration bringing up the, see if I can recall, bringing up the commercial lot coverage in other districts into this summary sheet for us? You refer to, I think, C1 and C2, and then you refer to the hospital covering 70% of the village. Of course, we know that has sewage, but still. And the reason I ask you that is because it kind of skewed my thinking of it. This area back there is unique. And that's why it is a special environmental district. And that's why it is not allowing more than 15% coverage. And it just seemed to me to confuse the issue totally, because you're really comparing grapefruits and bananas. I couldn't bring, you know, I mean, what was staff trying to say and what was the planning board trying to say? Because we don't have another area like this, and we need very much, we need to protect what we have back there. I don't know how the old Bridhaven building exceeded its 15% in the beginning. However, that was a slip-up that was done. It's there, so we have to do what we can, and I applaud Colony Ridge for going forth with improvements. So I certainly don't want this to be preventive measure for them going forward. But do you have an answer? Do you have any, I mean, why that was put in there?
Yes, I put it in there. And while SED 80 is certainly unique, and everything that you've said, I think everyone on the planning board agrees with you, and they'll have an opportunity to stand up here. It is not, however, Colony Ridge is not, however, the only medical facility that we have in town. And what I was trying to get at was a comparison of what other commercial facilities, and particularly the hospital, have in terms of lot coverage, just to let people know that we are still trying to restrict Colony Ridge. You know, in other commercial areas, we have upwards of 45% lot coverage allowed, but in SED 80, we don't, and that's done on purpose. So while we're trying to give some flexibility, we're not giving as much flexibility as we would in other areas of town. Excuse me, that was the point I was trying to make.
Well, maybe that is where the planning board came up with their 30%, which is reaching for the sky. You know, the next could be 40 or 45%, which is throughout town. And that's what I wanted to bring up. This is not a commercial area, and it should not be treated as such. So anyway,
well, and I apologize.
I made my point. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and I apologize if by placing
That's
that
okay.
in the background material
I just
that
needed
came
an
off
answer.
that.
You gave me one.
Okay. Other questions?
Mayor?
This is restricted to municipally owned government facilities, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Dormitories, is that, what's the thing, are there existing dormitories there? Do we look at Bridhaven as a dormitory, or are there some sleeping arrangements in the old Outer Banks Medical Center?
Well, in the SED 80 amendments that were discussed last year in relationship to some residential uses, we talked about potential reuse of the old CSI building as dormitories for medical staff in the case of an emergency, correct? So what we're trying to do, and the planning board actually made a last-minute change, not a last-minute change, but at their meeting yesterday, wanted to clarify that it's just for municipally owned facilities. So whatever that use is for municipal government would be included in these changes. Actually, it might help if we scroll down, or if we could get the ordinance that the planning board actually recommended last night. We have a revised version of the ordinance. It's not greatly revised, but they wanted to address that very concern about these changes running with specific uses and not with municipally owned facilities.
And I assume since this happened last night, it's not in our package here on the...
It's not in your package right now, but we prepared a change that I'm showing you right now.
Can we get a hard copy so we can look at it?
Yes. Sure.
Different ones of us read at different levels, so different speeds, so it'd be nice if we could have it individually.
Well, and also I am having to read from something that I have never read from before, Elizabeth, so.
Well, when you see the change, it's not greatly significant, but it does address the mayor's question.
It speaks to the dormitory.
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor, may I ask, while we're doing this, one thing that caused me great heartburn through this, and we've been discussing this idea of interpretation for quite a while versus what's in written, and under staff recommendation, it talks about type of uses, and it uses the word et cetera. To what type of use would et cetera be?
I'm sorry, I don't see that.
Under staff recommendation, it talks about hardship for the types of uses, and it says medical facilities, government, research, and then it uses the term et cetera, and I just want to know what that would be and what type of interpretation could be placed on the term et cetera.
This is from the staff report?
Yes.
Okay.
Staff recommendation.
It's the first paragraph of the staff recommendation, giving
Sentence
types of
beginning.
uses.
Sentence beginning with however.
Right.
The staff recommendation here was, again, looking at other similar types of uses in town and trying to make the point that sometimes when they're trying to keep these facilities up to date, there's a need to renovate. Yet at the same time in SED 80, we have some constraints on purpose placed on these. The use of et cetera in this case is the traditional use of et cetera, the Latin, which means and others of the same type. So that was meant to show that other types of similar facilities have these needs. But here in SED 80, we have some, excuse me, we have some constraints.
That scares me because I just don't like, I like everything in black and white and not to be so nebulous. So I'd like for us to be real careful because I don't want it to be interpreted.
Well, I think I would wholeheartedly agree if it was in our ordinance. In the background information, I understand it a little bit better. I don't want to see et cetera in an ordinance either.
And I'm having that because of the other ordinances being interpreted not as they are written, but as they are being used. That's why I'm asking that.
So hopefully we have that before you, and you can see where the planning board has struck there in paragraph F, subparagraph 3. This was their change that they made last night for municipally owned government facilities. They struck including medical offices, nursing, and convalescent homes and dormitories, and just struck that out to make it clear that really it's not about the use of the facility, it's the fact that it's government-owned and would apply to these two lots.
Was that the only change that was made?
Correct. Yes, sir. I'll also add that members of our planning board obviously are here and can give you their perspective better than I can. And also we have Mr. Jay Overton from Albemarle and Associates, who's been working with the Colony Ridge project, who can answer other questions.
All right, does the board have any further questions for Mrs. Teague at this time? All right. If not, any comment from the planning board? All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, first of all, I want to thoroughly assure you that the planning board has not lost their minds on this one. We wanted to take a little bit longer-term look at this ordinance and SED 80, and particularly as it pertained to municipally owned facilities, not municipally owned land, but municipally owned facilities, because there'd be a possibility of a third property involved if it was land. But municipally owned facilities, and therefore we're talking about two properties that are on the edge of SED 80 that are adjacent to a residential area. And because of the access, they're more of a residential area than they are SED 80 area. We are proposing that we increase lot coverage for these two town-owned facilities to 25%, 30% with turf stone. And that would be for the nursing home and the property that's currently occupied by CSI. And for only those areas not adjacent to Asterian waters or AEC areas. And why did we propose going to a higher level than the nursing home has asked for at this time? First of all, we don't want to stand in the way of any way of getting this nursing home remodeled. As a member of the nursing home committee, we are having a difficult time doing that, and we do not want to hold this up whatsoever. If we'd given them the 20%, they do not have a firm design yet, only a very, very preliminary design, and we might be back here a month from now asking for another variance. We felt like by going this far, we would be looking at the long-term use of the nursing home and possible future uses of that nursing home. Some of us are at that age now that we're very concerned about that. The other one is that the CSI facility will be a leasable town property in the very near future, and we don't know what might be the requirements for leasing that property. So we wanted to give a little bit more leeway there for those two facilities, but also keeping in mind that they are in the SED 80, even though they are adjacent and approached from a residential area where the lot coverage is 33%. And was basically looking at the location of these two properties and limited, and we don't normally talk specific properties when we're talking zoning changes, but in this case, with the language we have, we are talking only the two properties, and we're looking at what's best for those two properties and where they're located in adjacent to the SED 80 area. And after, if these changes are made and as we get final plans for the nursing home, because stormwater problems and the other issues that are involved with these changes will have to be addressed. So I'll take any questions that the commissioners might have at this time.
All right, any questions? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Did y'all talk about the appropriateness of turf stone for a nursing care facility?
Yes, we did, and the nursing home is not interested, so they will be limited to the 25%. This would apply more probably to the CSI facility than it would to the nursing home.
Ms. Edler?
Bob, you mentioned preliminary plans, so, and I understand Jay is here, so 19 point whatever it is % lot coverage may not address what it is that they want to do?
It might very well not when they finish their plan for the site and and the facilities that will be required to put in to support those modifications. Basically, they've looked at what the changes to the building would be and the changes to the driveway would be, but not the possible changes that we would require with a revised site plan. So some of those might increase that beyond 19%. Right now, just the building and the one small change in the driveway bring it up to the 19.19%.
I wonder why they would come to you, come to the committee, or come to the town without a final lot coverage desire. Because I will say this, I am thrilled that they're making some improvements. Your committee, the mayor, has worked long and hard. But what I don't understand is why would they come to you kind of piecemeal? You know, well, here's part of what we want to do, and we know we'll be over lot coverage, and next month they're going to come and say, well, here's some more, and then 3 months down there, here's some more. You know, I see what you're trying to do by accommodating them, by giving them more than what they really need, hopefully, but I'm also worried about where we're going with this and when we're going to finish.
We did not want to stand in their way. This is what this is all about.
Well, I think-
Nursing home revisions have drug on far too long already. And this is all the preliminary information we had, and it's certainly not information to make a decision on. But
Well, if it's all you have, it's all you have to work with, Bob, and I
Right.
understand that. It's just that I don't like giving somebody carte blanche without knowing why they need it. So, okay, you answered the question.
Further questions? Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Teague.
Over Ms. Teague. Any further questions for Mr. Edwards while he's here? All right, thank you.
thank you.
Yes.
Given Commissioner Sadler's comments, is there any particular reason why the applicant didn't initiate a zoning ordinance text amendment, but rather based on conversations, staff took it and ran with it? It might be more explicit if the applicant had initiated the zoning ordinance and specifically stated what they wanted in the zoning ordinance text amendment.
If I may interrupt, that's probably my fault to a certain extent. I think probably my discussions with Cliff we're the owner of the property, and we need to move it along as quickly as we can. So I think I should probably take responsibility.
So we
for
mixed
that.
apples and oranges, and we got caught up.
Got bananas.
Yes. Okay, that's
But
answered my
that's-
question, thank you.
I think that's more me than anybody else.
Okay, thank you.
I have, Ms. Teague, I have one question while you're there. If we can go back to the text itself of the actual amendment,
I guess actually go up.
probably need the separate, that's just a one-page document, I think, so I think we need the whole. Or is it on the other- oh, is it further? So I have a question about Part B, about F3B.
Okay. Is that,
Here we go. In B, do you agree that on the third line, that where it says shall not exceed 15%, that the phrase lot coverage should be inserted? So it's clear that that's what we're talking about?
I would agree.
Okay. So I just want to point that out in case the board makes a motion that that language needs to be added. All right, thank you. Yes, any other questions for Ms. Teague while she's here?
I do have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Not in the ordinance, but in the preliminary items where it talks about discussions with, and obviously we've gotten very specific, even though we probably shouldn't. It talks about the proposed is 19.16. So 20% would meet the requirements as per discussions.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from Ms. Teague, or for Ms. Teague? All right, does the board need any, I'm sorry. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this proposed text amendment at this time? Yes, sir, Mr. Murphy.
Just as a point of clarification, in the planning board meeting, we acknowledged the fact that Turfstone was not conducive, to nursing home use. And you'll notice at the top of that, what's on the screen right now, it says porous surfaces other than, concrete and asphalt. So that came into being because of our stormwater management, and I would suggest that perhaps Turfstone be removed, but other porous surfaces, stay intact. And that's the logic behind going to 25%. One other point was that I think it's pretty hard, to come in with a set of plans to do something unless you know exactly how much you are allowed to do. So for them to bring a set of plans, to the commissioners or to the planning board, not knowing whether they've got 20% or 25% coverage, it would be kind of a waste, futile, to spend that money beforehand, So by increasing the lot coverage, then they can come back to us and would have to come back to both boards, to get final approval.
All right. Does anybody else from the audience wish to comment at this time? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Overton. I'm with Albemarle and Associates. I'd like to thank the staff for what help they have offered on this. We've had meetings with them. We've had meetings with Cliff. This is very important to me personally. Bridhaven housed my neighbor for 7 years, and they did an excellent job. They cared for him. Mr. Ashley passed away last February. Every day Mr. Ashley was there, Ms. Nell was there as well. And it's so vitally important to our community that this facility be upgraded just like we've done this building here. When I came here 25 years ago, we had planning and permits in here. And if you stop and think about every other municipality and every other municipal facility on this Outer Banks, every town and the county have improved their buildings. They have improved their facilities. And y'all had the foresight and the wisdom to put in place the SED 80 to protect our maritime interests and our natural heritage, the environment, but you also took control of 2 pieces of property that were on the edge of that so that you would be able to have control over what goes on there, and you would be able to provide facilities for me and everybody else in this community. And I applaud you for that. And as we sit here today, we're talking about what we need to do with these town-owned facilities to provide the enhancements that we need as a community. We've got a partner with this because y'all had the foresight and opportunity to come together with Hillco and have new management in here in this facility, and they want to make improvements. I've been there and I've seen what they've done thus far, and it is amazing to me what has transpired, old versus the new. What we're looking at here in this text amendment is not a mode to try to negatively impose on the SED 80 and what we need to keep there and what we need to preserve. If you go out and you look at the sites and we think about 15% versus 25%, and you look at the impacted area right now, that area that's green area or lawn on each one of these facilities, there's not a 404 area, there's not a maritime forest in there. That's part of the lawns. That's the areas that would actually have the enhancements. If we put in new ADA compliant ramps, if we put in better parking, or if we make a better entrance, it's all going to be within that confined area that's already a part of what we may call the disturbed area within the SED 80. It's not a matter of let's go out to the back 40 here and take out some of those areas that we've preserved. So, you know, looking at the context of this, I know it's a very, very sensitive issue, but I also would like to encourage this board that we not get ourselves in something like we've had imposed with other situations where we can't even drive on our beaches like we used to. You know, we can't get our bridge built, you know, because we've got so many regulatory things. We're talking about Mr. Edwards was talking a while ago that he's getting close. I'm getting close to the age. And I hope I'm not the first one out of all of us here that's there. But I also know that it's real important that we do what we can to put in place the tools to provide for this. As was stated earlier, anything that occurs on the site plan, Ms. Kuhn was correct. I mean, we shouldn't be talking about the site plan, but we had to have some place to start. But anything that goes with the site plan, whether it's lot coverage and so forth, the town's already got other ordinances in place that will take care of how we develop. But we just don't have any flexibility right now to even go beyond what's there. So I would greatly encourage the board, if you could, to go with the planning board's recommendation. It creates the flexibility. It provides what's potentially necessary to enhance this facility without the use of turf stone. You all know far well what goes on with the turf stone in some of the access areas, and we don't want to have that where we're bringing in elderly people. I think again about Ms. Nell going in and out of that facility every day. There's going to be other husbands and wives that are going to be going in and out of that facility, that a turf stone would be a negative for them. So again, I can answer questions to the best of my ability about what Hillco is looking to do, what they want to do, but everything has not been finalized yet because it needed to have some enhanced parameters. But I thank y'all for your consideration, and hopefully we'll be talking a couple of years ago or from now about what a great facility this is, and what a great day this was when y'all made the opportunity for some expansion. Thank you.
All right, does anybody else wish to comment on this proposed text amendment? If not, does the board wish to receive any further information before it begins its deliberations? If not, this will conclude the public hearing on this matter, and the board may begin its deliberations on this proposed text amendment.
Who would like to start off?
I would like to
Commissioner
start off with questioning you, the mayor. Didn't we have an agreement with Colony Ridge that they initiate these improvements and be completed in a certain amount of time?
Yes.
I think it was
Part of our lease, actually.
Yeah. Part of our lease, which we charge how much for?
I think that's $10 a month.
Okay. And in that lease, how much management do we have over the facility?
We have a volunteer, a committee. We have a committee which is made up of 3 representatives of the town and 3 representatives of Colony Ridge or Hillco.
And if the 3 sides cannot agree, who is the manager?
They have the lease for the property.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to get at. I think Jay mentioned something about management. Jay, we don't have any management. We have a committee. But how long has it been since that 1.5 years was given them? Do you remember exactly? Are we a year into that?
Was it
a little over?
last August, September that we really?
October.
So the lease
Okay.
was formally
So
signed
we're-
in October.
So we're getting on up to 5 or 6 months.
It was
Jay?
it's longer than that.
Well, yeah, that's right. I'm thinking, that's not right. I know it's been over a year. Excuse me. I hope that those who follow us are not coming in here for lot coverage that will include all of us who will eventually need to go there, because that land would take in, I think, a lot of the SED 80. And that is my worry. That I'm really... just for the record, 15% lot coverage restriction applied throughout the district. It's important to protect the maritime forest and estuarine areas within it. When this whole area was created, there was a real concern that development back along those woods and that water would be compromised by development. And if we had not, not we, but those who came before us, if they had not had the foresight to put the restrictions in there, we may already have compromised building in that area. And I see, for those who follow this board, I see this as a problem for the future, because expansion, as Colony Ridge improves its appearance, its services, its care for those who live there, I can envision expansion. I can envision enlargement. And it gives me a lot to be concerned about for that area. So I'm just going to say that for once this year, I disagree with the planning board.
It's early in the year, though.
I know. Being forewarned is forearmed, guys.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I agree with the planning board. That's all I need to say. I'm ready to vote.
Commissioner Kahane?
I've sat here for a couple decades. A little bit of history. These facilities were formed before I ever got involved with the town, and they were formed because the town owned the land and there were no medical facilities anywhere in Dare County. And Dare County and Nags Head had a partnership to form the old Outer Banks Medical Center. That's how it came about. And then, of course, Bridhaven came about as well. But those were because there was nothing involved. We don't need to talk about the hospital. We don't need to talk about how many medical facilities. All these things are wonderful. We worked very hard to get the hospital in Nags Head, as a matter of fact, not somewhere in another community. But as Commissioner Sadler says, we're talking with grapefruit and bananas, I believe is her analogy. But these uses are important to us. But for things to work, it's a two-way street. Jay, you made a very, very eloquent presentation. I wish your people that you worked for were as cooperative and as eloquent as you, because it has been a very strained and walked-out type relationship when you want to try to have dialogue. This board, and I'm speaking for myself, is very frustrated with Colony Ridge because it was a very, it's still not a smooth relationship because of the fact that we have a hard time getting people to come together in meetings and have discourse and dialogue. And to me, it appears to be a one-way street, only heading out of town, not really heading into town. What was done to the citizens of our community and their families during the year of 2011 was appalling. It created the most heartbreak of any situations I've seen in this community. So we don't have a whole lot of trust sitting up here, speaking for myself. I'm willing to try. I appreciate the work that's going to go into renovate the building. I appreciate the work done by the planning board, and I know that Mr. Edwards, I appreciate your sentiments because you know exactly the frustrating experiences that you yourself have had. And if I thought a zoning text amendment would get rid of those frustrations, I might be all for it. But I'm more to the point of I'm not at the 25 and 30. I'm more at 20% lot coverage, and I'm not even if it's 25% with alternative use of parking, because I think turf stone in and of itself creates more monsters than it solves, as we have discovered through other site plans. So you have been very wonderful with your remarks and what your beliefs are, and you're right. Story after story, family after family has the same experience that you've had as a neighbor. But I am not willing to give carte blanche to the town, because essentially these properties are the town, and I don't think we should hold ourselves to such higher standards as we would hold other entities and other taxpayers throughout the town. And I'm just not going to go with the most lenient one as proposed. I think if there are issues, they come back to the table and we'll discuss them. But I'm not willing to just say, okay, let's throw the door open and in perpetuity.
Thank you, ma'am. It reminds me of a divorced couple who have to talk to each other because of the kids. Yeah. And it's about the patients in Colony Ridge. It's not about Hillco or Bridhaven, whoever it is. I think if we approve just the bare minimum here, we will see them back in front of us. I think approving an extra 5% of lot coverage here allows for some flexibility. It's nowhere near as much flexibility as are in other commercial areas. It shouldn't be, because it is SED 80 and it's on the edge of the woods. While it's not in the middle of the woods, that edge is a protective barrier as well for the rest of the woods. But the saving grace here for me is that it's for municipally owned government facilities. There's one nursing home in Dare County, and this is it.
We have some hopes to reuse the old Outer Banks Medical Center, and I think having that 5% there would be a good thing and allow for some flexibility. It is, in the end, it's up to this board and future boards. They're municipally owned facilities. If this applied all throughout the woods, I don't think any of us would support it. But it's as specific as you can get with a zoning text amendment, because it is limited such that it applies just to these two properties. And I have to support it because I think it's the right way to get the improvements that we all want, and the quickest way. It's proceeded slowly enough already, y'all. There are, that's not our fault. I know.
Thank you very much for that.
I know that's not at all our fault, but that is part of the reason that I also asked staff to work with this group, that they're our properties, and it did seem appropriate to me that we try and facilitate it and to get the improvements done. And they've started, but there's still a lot left to do. It can be a much better place, and it's on track to be there. And I hope we will be able to reach some solution here that allows that to proceed and go forward. Because again, it takes long enough anyway to get the steamroller moving. And with that, I will make that motion on the planning board recommendation with the attorney's recommendation that we include the reference to lot coverage directly after 15% of lot coverage.
Who would?
John Leidy made a suggestion that
I think
shall not exceed 15% of lot coverage. Was that correct, John?
I think we should just put lot coverage right there before the shall.
Lot coverage shall not exceed 15%.
Yep.
Okay.
Right there.
Before I second your motion,
I was hoping somebody might.
before I second your motion, I need a little interpretation here. Isn't that that's not what the planning board recommended?
No, that is what the planning board recommended. I think it's just
The
clarification.
15% is the one that's got me. What'd you do, John?
The 15% applies to those lots abutting estuarine waters, so it doesn't really apply to this particular site. But
Second.
It doesn't make any difference.
Second.
So your motion is for 25% up to 30%?
Yes, ma'am, but I would certainly consider amending it to eliminate the 30%, because I don't think the Turfstone or the, I could live without 30%.
Could is it open for discussion?
Yes, ma'am, it
Okay.
is.
Could I ask Elizabeth for an answer to a question, please?
Please.
Elizabeth, what is the lot coverage that the other facility, the one that CSI is moving out of, what is that lot coverage?
Without actually getting calculations from the site plan, I couldn't tell you.
But
But
it would
it's-
be under 15%.
I believe
Provided
unless,
there wasn't a variance at any point.
correct.
So
Well, would that be an assumption, Cliff, because we thought Bridhaven was 15% and it's
Well, we knew
almost
Bridhaven
19.
had a variance and had been approved to get up to 18%, but they are a little bit over.
Over that, too.
Right.
Okay.
But
Well, I'm just trying to grasp what's out there and where we may be headed. So we feel strongly that our other building out there is less than 15%. Okay,
yes, ma'am.
all right.
Curiosity question, was the variance by the Board of Adjustments or by this board?
Board of Adjustments. Board of Adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
Any idea when? I'm sorry, you got me curious now.
2,000.
The only other thing I want to say is, when laws are made, I mean, they're there, ordinances or laws, they're not guidelines. You know, you're given something concrete, you know what you have, therefore you plan around those parameters. And I don't like what has happened, the 15 to the 18, which is really 19, and now we're going to give them 25, which could possibly, whoops, we slipped, it's 28. I don't agree with that concept. When you bought it, you know what you bought, buyer beware. Stay within those guidelines. Stay there. We know that that land over there cannot be expanded to handle double its capacity. I hope one day someone will see the future and buy a piece of property and put something that can accommodate all of us when needed. Saying that, I can tell you now, I cannot swallow over 20% period, whether they use porous concrete or whatever. It's their business, what they can use, whatever coverage you want, except I'm glad they did take out turf stone. I think they should. Thank you for eliminating dormitories. But I think 20%, you need to stay in that percentage. This is what you have to work with. And you can certainly make a lot of improvements without disturbing your lot coverage. That's my opinion. Thank you.
I think as a legislative body, we also know the flexibility of laws and that they can be changed. And when they should be changed, I think we should change them. And I think this is one of those cases. I really do. But it's a matter more of opinion than of fact. I understand that. Further comments?
Well, as far as a further comment, do you want to offer an amendment, Hannah?
Well, excuse me, if Bob wants to call the question, and then what happens? What happens to 2-2?
2-2 fails.
Fails.
Yeah.
So then we could have some other brilliant idea, if you want to do it that way. I don't know. I feel very strongly that, 20% is it. And do it. For goodness sakes, you messed around a year, just get on with it. And then if they want to do something 3 years down the road that's going to require something else, we can, I just don't believe, and this is happening, I just don't believe that we need to fix everything with one ordinance. And I'm seeing this happening, sorry, take it for what it's worth, staff, but I'm seeing this happening. And it, in my opinion, we're not trying to fix the world with one ordinance. So Doug, you want me to, let's let the mayor make a decision.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Is there an amendment that you would consider, Commissioner Kuhn?
Mine would be a different motion, so I would suggest just calling the question and let's try to.
Let's call the question then. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign.
Nay.
The motion fails 2-2. Is there another motion somebody would like to submit?
And this is one I have not talked with Commissioner Sadler, but I was looking at reading what was presented to us about the replacement of asphalt. And while I'm not a turf stone, but that can be replaced with porous concrete, porous asphalt. And it had a 1.1 to 1.1.5, if I'm not mistaken.
1 square foot of concrete or asphalt can be replaced by 1.5 square feet of open face paving block.
Which, I'm not a turf stone person, but I'm at the 20%, if allowing 10% above that to replace some of their concrete with something more porous, I'm more at that, which would end up being like 22%, because that gives them some flexibility in their parking areas and so forth. That's about the extent that I am. I'm not at a flat 25%, because I just think, okay, well, then we're going to come in and get into the turf stone or porous concrete debate again once we start doing it. But to me, giving a 10% multiplier would work with some of their concrete things. Maybe that's a warped sense of logic.
restate it for me again. What would
I'm at 22%.
22%.
Which allows,
Let's just go to the 20%. It seems to be the issue here instead of worrying about, and, I mean, if you're gonna, let's go with the 20%. That'll take care of that issue. If you want to throw in the
the
1/1.5
10% extra.
or whatever, or 10% above, that's fine too. But I mean, I can live with that. I mean, first of all, let me say, that was really nice of you to say how nice that the people from Bridhaven were. And of course, I don't agree. Well, we're bouncing kudos off of each other, but.
No, only with Jay.
Okay, yeah. This absolutely has, as far as I'm concerned, has direct involvement with that organization. Get them off their butt and to do something. If it takes to do that, that's fine. Because I guess after I told you I went to the meeting for the mayor last time, I'm done with them anyway. So, I mean, I can live with the 20%. Let's go with that and go ahead and make a motion and let's try that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that would be my motion, to go with 20%. That's it.
Second?
Further discussion?
I'm sorry, for clarity, I want to make sure I understand. It would be replacing the 25 with 20, correct? And then would you be eliminating the reference to the turf stone?
Absolutely. Just exactly that.
That whole clause?
Right.
This whole section.
That's it.
Okay.
And
Thank you for
you had
that
already
clarification.
taken out dormitories, I think.
Yes.
Up in A, the planning board had eliminated the
Okay.
references to.
Yeah, I think that 20%, they'll get this done. They'll get busy on it, and, this can be finished. And in the future, there's always other people that they can come back to. I think this moves along, and I don't think we have, Mayor, I don't think we have impeded their process whatsoever, because you intervened. You didn't say for you all to come down here and do your own request for you went right to Cliff. You moved this along. It's being decided one way or another today. We've been over backwards, Jay. I mean, you haven't been here through thick and thin, just through the thin. So I want them to move along. I want people out there to be happy, but I am not willing to just say, do whatever. It's not my time.
Well, the only reason why I'm going along with it is it gets us off it gets us off the.
It gets it going, it gets it moving,
going, yeah.
gets Jay busy.
And I don't think any of us want to slow this process down. I understand
No.
that. I know we all care about the woods. I can foresee them working a plan and it comes back at 20.8% and we have to go through this process again.
Well-
I think that's what the planning board was trying to
Yeah.
relieve
I know.
and avoid. And
Well-
I think that was the right way to do that. But I also want to move it along today.
But I also want them to know that we're very concerned about that area, and you get 20%. If that's what the board decides here today, you get 20%. You can make it work. I know you can. So,
Call the question.
yes.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. That's good.
So now we're on.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We're moving.
We're moving.
We're moving. Old business. Consideration of a resolution requesting NCDOT mitigate stormwater drainage issues in South Nags Head and in all town neighborhoods. Mr. Ogburn.
Mayor, before we start this, may I make a comment?
Please.
We've requested a lot from DOT over the years, and we've lost the person that we worked with. And I just want everybody to recognize that Alan Russell was such a great person to work with. He dealt with all our DOT issues, and he died over the holidays at a very young age, I might add, of 50. And we will sorely miss him throughout Dare and Currituck counties that he served, because he was really wonderful. He tried to be helpful, and he just did a great job, and I just wanted to.
No, you're entirely correct. The Kitty Hawk mayor was saying last week, you know, Alan knew what we needed, and he had it there for us when we needed it.
And he had the history.
Yep.
So,
He will be
Lost
missed.
a good advocate.
yes, we did. Thank you for that comment.
At your last meeting, Commissioner Cahoon had asked that staff bring forward a resolution requesting NCDOT to take action to mitigate the flooding and safety hazards in the town of Nags Head, particularly along 1243 or South Old Oregon Inlet Road and NC 12 along the Beach Road. I have also, that resolution is attached in your packet, as well as a memo that I wrote to the board. DOT was invited to be here today. They could not. However, in the memo, I summarized the commitment that DOT has made in regards to maintenance of their areas of control. Ralph Burrell and I met yesterday with Sterling Baker, and Sterling reiterated that I told Sterling I'm going to the board and I'm going to tell them that you are going to do everything that's listed in this memo, and he said we are going to do that. He also had some assurances in the second paragraph there. The course of action that DOT takes most of the time before they do any large maintenance or construction is they'll go out and do a study and they have monies available between $15,000 and $25,000. He gave us a little bit stronger of a commitment that money is a real possibility. He used the work that was done in Duck. You know, going up through Duck, the NC-12 had a large issue there. I think it's at Bias Shores. They did a similar type project study, and then that was created the blueprint to go in and do the work. So as part of this process of moving on, Johnny Martin with Moffitt and Nichols did that work. Sterling shared that Johnny has a lot of the data and information he needs already for this area, partly because he did so when he put the BMP in for the ocean outfall at Curlew Street. So I'm going to kind of pursue that further now that we have a little bit of a stronger commitment that DOT has some money to go towards that. The other thing that I wanted to share with you out of that meeting was the outfall at the Red Drum. He is initiating that variance process to go before the CRC to get that outfall extended. He has, at some point, and this may be as early as your meeting in February, the board will need to issue or approve a resolution requesting DOT to go forward with that project, and they are willing to cost share as much as 50% on that with the town. Ralph and I were trying to remember yesterday, and we think the outfalls are about $450,000 to get those extended. We have the material, so that's going to greatly reduce the cost. So we could be looking at anywhere, maybe $200,000 of town expenditure to get that outfall repaired and extended. But more to come with that. But I did want you to know that what DOT has committed to doing, they've done some of this already, and the resolution is attached.
When are they going to submit their variance? Because once you submit one, it must be heard within so many days. Bless you. It must be heard within so many days of it being submitted. So I know you said he's working on it. Do you have any idea when he's going to submit it? Because that's the big question.
Is when does it go forward?
Yeah. Because once it's submitted, by law, it must be heard within so many days.
The impression that I got from Sterling was sooner rather than later. But I can't commit to exactly when when he will submit it.
Well, there's meetings in April. There's meetings in June or July.
I'll check and find out which one he's.
I believe he needs the resolution from the town first before he can submit the variance.
So we need to be going ahead and getting our stuff done before he submits the
Right,
variance.
we can get the resolution before you in February. He gave it to us yesterday.
And we told them that it would come before the February 6th board meeting with the resolution. So we can give that to him. He also said if Cliff drafted a letter, he may be able to start a little bit sooner, saying that the resolution is coming forward and the town does agree to enter into this partnership with them.
The reason I ask and I'm pushing pretty hard is get it done while we know it's still there to make up, because we don't know what will happen after July 1st.
And he was under the same opinion. That's what he basically told us. The sooner the better, if we can get this done right away.
Ralph, while you're up there, can you just give us an idea on the state of that outfall right now after the storms that we've had?
Well, it is basically is filled in front of it again. It is functioning, very limited. You probably have maybe a third of the pipe, the top third of the pipe, that is open, so there is some water flowing out. But the sand has accreted again in front of that outfall.
The water in that ditch looked like it was really low. The ditch
Yeah,
leading
I mean,
to it.
it's flowing, but like I said, it's not flowing full force. Now, if we get a lot of rain, it probably, the way it is now, it'll clear the end of it out. But, you know, normally this time of year, it's fine because, you know, we have the rain events and the northeasters that kind of keep it clear. When we start getting into the summer months, June, July, when we don't have the big rain events and we don't have northeast, you know, winds prevailing from the southwest, that's when it fills it in, clogs the pipe. So the first big rain event we have, everything floods. It just backs up because it can't get out.
The new outfalls that they did further south than that are problematic to a certain extent. I mean, there are these big concrete structures on the beach, bolts sticking up out. They're ugly as sin, I guess would be the easy way to say it. And you go back up and you look at that one at Conch Shell, you can't tell it's there. But I understand that they have not given us any other options except to replace it with the concrete structure.
That's correct. That's their new standard.
I will, yes, ma'am.
No, I just, excuse me, wanted to make sure that all of our new structures are operational. They're doing the job for which they were intended, the extension.
They are. They are.
And
The one at Curlew Street does have a little bit of, has some sand in front of it. The other two are pretty clear. Matter of fact, they probably have at least, now this, I haven't been out there in the last 2 weeks, but they had it extended out at least 20 feet into the surf line.
Okay, and
beyond the surf line.
That was my last question, Ralph. Are you going to be allowed, do you think, after this conversation, to extend the red drum as far as the others?
He feels pretty confident that we can.
Yeah, he feels pretty confident. They had a survey that, if I correctly, I can remember, I have it with me, but anyway, that outfall at one point was out around 570 feet, and now it is back to 511 feet. So there's 60 feet of it that has disappeared over the years. And that's what they're hoping to put back, that 60 feet, because that's what the variance is going to ask for, to restore it back to its original length.
Except that they're going to encase it in concrete.
Yes.
And it's going to, instead of the
Yes.
cost of 50 feet of pipe, it's going to be $500,000.
Massive and ugly.
Since I will not be voting on the variance after having this discussion, if somebody wishes to submit other ideas for the variance, there are ways to amend a variance. So if somebody's got a different plan that would be an alternative, that can always be one of the criteria of a variance. Because typically, public projects get a general nod, but they also get a lot of scrutiny. But if somebody's got a different idea of how to make a better mousetrap, then it can be, submitted as an alternative criteria.
And I think we have 3 case studies that show that maybe the concrete prefab collar is not the route to go for safety reasons.
You know, I mean,
It causes more problems than it
I'm
fixes.
throwing this on the floor.
Yeah, thank
so-
you.
So you'll.
A word to the wise.
There are ways to
I can, if the,
amend.
And even, I mean, they're doing it for the purposes of it reducing maintenance costs. I'm sorry, but the capital, you could replace those pipes 5 times and with the money that you're putting out for the concrete.
I'm sure there are engineers that can give you some ideas about
May-
that kind of work, about how to, that are knowledgeable in this environment, would be my thought process.
Thank you, that's, I'm really glad to hear that there is some alternative to it. We were pressed for time on the last ones, but anyway. Thank you, Ralph. Sorry to.
I can send a letter requesting that they go ahead and acquire the funds to pursue this without committing to a dollar amount from the town, to go ahead and get this going 2 weeks faster, or we can bring the resolution back February 6th.
Well, I think you can bring the resolution back, but I think a letter from the mayor saying that we're planning to do this.
I'd make a motion that we authorize the mayor and manager to work with DOT to write the proper letter or proper resolution that will move the outfall project forward.
I'm sorry, was that a motion?
That was a motion.
I beg your pardon.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? Proper covers a lot of ground, y'all.
That gives you the flexibility to write a letter that will meet the DOT needs to move the variance forward onto a calendar.
And that's the important part of this, is getting it on the
That's the important
calendar.
part, is getting it calendared.
Okay.
You can also, between getting it calendared and you know when, we can also find those other 2 or 3 variance ideas to submit.
Here's an
because-
alternative.
Yes.
And that can become part of the official stipulated fact if the town wants to be with DOT when they do argue with. The town can contact CAMA staff about stipulated facts.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Back to our resolution requesting NCDOT, I'll read the resolution for us. Whereas the town of Nags Head experiences severe flooding situations in South Nags Head on South Old Oregon Inlet Road, State Route 1243, during periods of steady rain and throughout the town on NC 12, the Beach Road, as well as in the west side neighborhoods such as Vista Colony, Nags Head Acres, and Northridge subdivisions. And whereas several weeks after Hurricane Sandy in October 2012, flooding on South Oregon Inlet Road, State Route 1243, was still present, producing hazardous conditions resulting in a tremendous overflow of water on the multi-use path, requiring users of the multi-use path, walkers, joggers, bicyclists, etc., to use the roadway. And whereas, when users of the multi-use path in South Nags Head utilize the roadway, State Route 1243, due to flooding on the path, they are exposed to vehicles coming from both directions that are driving through standing water. All share one lane of the 2-lane roadway. Now therefore be it resolved that the Nags Head Board of Commissioners hereby requests that the North Carolina Department of Transportation, in order to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, work with town officials to improve the flooding situation on South Old Oregon Inlet Road, State Route 1243, and to continue to address stormwater issues throughout the town.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. New business. Was that all from old business for you, sir?
Yes.
Good. Committee reports? Any committees?
Oh, I did, yes. It's been so long.
I understand.
And our tourism board meeting is tomorrow. So we did meet in December. We recognize the outgoing members, and especially our own Ralph Buxton as chair. He was recognized for all of the hard work that he had done that year with so much, including the Seafood Festival. Visitation figures were mixed, with Hatteras down due to the transportation difficulties, and even the North Beach actually sent mixed signals. Jeanette's Pier and Jockey's Ridge, all the numbers were down for November. We can't quite accept weather. And let me see, the number of short-term restricted fund grants were approved, including Nags Head's request for Phase 5 multi-use path. That was the biggest event for me. The sales tax numbers finally jumped out of the negative in September, which was amazing. Still, through the September figures, we were still down for the entire year, 2%. But we'll meet tomorrow, and hopefully those figures improved October, and we should have November's tomorrow, too.
I'm sure the access to Hatteras is dragging
Yeah.
things down. And I do want to offer congratulations, and we expect great things from your leadership on the Tourism Bureau.
Well, it's not official
A
till
substantial
tomorrow.
increase in tourism should be in store.
Oh, I'm sure. We're going to talk it up.
Good. Thank you very much
Thanks.
for your leadership there.
Thank you.
The GovEd committee, I do have a report. Channel 20 committee, the GovEd committee, a couple months back, the committee appointed a subcommittee to presented information, then recently they presented information on a potential scriptwriter / videographer that I said that they were going to come up with, editor / videographer. It's kind of a culmination of a person that is going to, more of a production manager type of thing anyway, the committee's authorized the subcommittee to make a selection. They've looked at applications to further progress. Since the last GovEd meeting, the selections have been made, and the news magazine show is going forward. The first program to be done, of course, is going to be with the school system, an educational channel magazine program, which will highlight the 3 educational channel members. And then following the completion of the educational channel program, the government channel show will begin with more members in the process and so on and so forth. So basically what I want to say is they are in the process of hiring, if they haven't done that already, hiring a person to do that on a part-time basis. They were taking applications. My understanding was that there were several. They narrowed it down to 2. I think they're going to give a little bit to each and see who comes out and recommend back to the committee as to a person to hire. That's all I have. But the GovEd channel is starting to, I expect big things in the future with the Channel 20, Channel 21. We're going to have regular programming. It's going to be kind of neat.
Good. Sell it on cable. Yeah, it's 12 o'clock. My stomach's
Lunchtime.
starting to grumble a little bit.
Yes.
And I don't think we can get through the rest in time for it to really hurt. Can we meet back here at 1:15? Is that time enough? Okay, we're standing in recess to 1:15. We're going to bring our meeting back to order after a lunch recess. The next item under new business is board and committee appointments. And we had consideration of an appointment to the Outer Banks Seafood Festival Board. Now, this is a nonprofit committee. We had some suggestions back to this group. They had asked for suggestions of 2 folks for us. We'd really like to appoint 1 person to it. But we also want to make sure that they include the other towns, that it's not just the town of Nags Head involved in the Outer Banks Seafood Festival. It's the whole community. So with that said, open for suggestions. I put forward a name or 2. Board, what's y'all's pleasure?
Well, I would like to throw out one of those names that you did, because I'm reading this email from Susie Walters that was on that committee last year, and looking at all the 9 bullets that she had said this person would need, I thought, whoa, it eliminates probably half the town that's still employed. The other thing is, I understand that they're going to be meeting once a week, beginning very soon, and it put out the hours. So I think there's a citizen in Nags Head that actually has the interest and certainly the time and would do a great job, and that's Webb Fuller.
Sir? Would you care to make that as a motion?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Webb to this committee for the year of 2013, and the event, again, is October 19th. They don't have a lot of time left.
No, I know they've got a lot of work to do. I'll second that nomination. Further discussion?
Mayor, to follow up just on what you said was, I read who they want the members of the committee to be, but one thing, point of clarification, is that when the town of Nags Head went into the land where the festival site is, we did it as a shortfall because the Visitors Bureau cannot borrow money and they didn't have enough money. We went into it with the idea that whatever happened there would be a community-wide effort. And I think it does a disservice to all the other communities not to be involved and to have input and participate in whatever goes on there. And this is a perfect example. And your suggestion is minimum of 2 names. If they're asking a town for a representative, it's not legislative, 1 name is enough. Those are my comments.
It's not legislative in what?
It's not legislatively demanding of names.
And my intent was to write them a letter back and pass those suggestions on, that there really needs to be representation from other municipalities. It's not just a Nags Head thing.
No, it needs to have community buy-in, because this is Outer Banks Seafood Festival, not Nags Head.
It certainly wasn't just Nags Headers and that 10,000 people that were there this fall.
No, but the other thing is that they do have 2 members at large, and I've expressed to some folks that I think those 2 members at large should be from the municipalities, and it can change as they see fit. But it is a community-wide effort.
There were a lot of people that worked very hard, John Ratzenberger being one of them, and whoever sits on their board needs to realize that everybody works, not just a couple of the board members are worker bees, but everybody should get their hands dirty.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign.
No.
The motion passes 3-1. Item number 3, consideration of traffic control map amendments.
Yes, sir. At your last meeting, I brought before you 2 requests that we had received from property owners associations. One being at the North Ridge, I'll start with that one, in the corner of Windjammer and Lookout. The request was to make that 4-way intersection of 4-way stop signs. There's 2 there now. They're requesting 2 additional ones. There's a memo in your packet from Chief Brinkley that supports that request. The other is for no parking signs on the edge of the right-of-way and just on the beach road, just north of the Seven Sisters area or in the Seven Sisters area. At this time, staff is not recommending that you approve that request. When staff does its evaluation, we determine if trouble spots, if this is an area that's had accidents, if it's a public safety hazard. That not being the case, as well as the concern that we have not been overly restrictive of cars parking in the right of way, and approving this, we're fearful that we may end up with no parking in other sections that may or may not need such. So the Deputy Chief Tom Gillum's here if you have any questions for him. But again, we are recommending the 4-way stop sign at Northridge, and at this time, we do not recommend you put the no parking signs up at Seven Sisters.
Mayor, I make a motion that we amend the traffic control map to add stop signs at West Windjammer and West Lookout Roads in the Northridge subdivision.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Items referred to in presentations from the town attorney. Consideration of a resolution in support of legislation clarifying public trust authority. I know this one's near and dear to your heart, Dan.
certainly, well, it's definitely something I've spent some of my life on in the last few years. I'm just going to give a brief explanation. I think you've understood about the Cherry Inc. opinion in the past, but the way the Cherry Inc. case worked out, the Court of Appeals opinion has created some misunderstandings and needs to be clarified about just what the extent of municipal authority is on the public beach, and other towns have recognized that. The town of Emerald Isle recognized that and has proposed this legislation. John and I have looked at and to some degree been involved in the preparation of the proposal, and basically there was two ways to get the Cherry Inc. opinion clarified. One was to have the state Supreme Court do it, and the other is to have legislation that does it, and the state Supreme Court chose not to. So this is the only other path. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Has everybody had a chance to read the resolution? We've got it on the board in front of us.
Motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Is there further discussion? This would be nice if we could get this resolved this way, and I think having the support of a number of different coastal communities makes it go a lot further in the legislature. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, if I could, I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank Town Manager Frank Rush and Emerald Isle for partnering with us and working very closely. He kind of took the ball here on this one, and their town's attorney and our town's attorney, both John and Ben, worked diligently on this. I appreciate them working to get one concerted effort. We talk about one voice with coastal issues, and this has been an avenue by which that's starting to happen. So I did want to thank Frank.
Well, we've generally had a really good relationship with Emerald Isle, and it's nice to see that continue.
And we're going to distribute this to everybody else as well, for other towns along the shore.
It has been submitted to every coastal municipality. Some have already approved and signed this, so I am hopeful that it'll come with all of us having signed it.
I believe Duck said they had done it already.
Southern Shores.
Kitty Hawk, Southern Shores, where it was on their agendas, and they
Southern Shores passed it at their meeting 2 weeks ago.
And I'm thinking everywhere in between here and Sunset Beach as well.
Heading south.
Mr. Mayor, I had one more comment if we're...
Yes, sir.
The Sarasota Fourth Circuit arguments are scheduled for the 31st, and John and I will be headed to Richmond to argue the issues that are still alive in that case.
And which court is that?
The United States Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals.
And I'll add to that the Telosco hearing will also take place at the same time with different lawyers.
Good. Maybe we can get some resolution. It would be nice. Anything else, sir?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you, and thank you for having me this afternoon.
It's always a pleasure. Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir. I'm going to start with stormwater drainage projects updates, and I'll ask Ralph to come up and talk specifically about the maintenance measures that the town staff has taken, as well as the progress with the Vista Colony project.
Good afternoon. I guess we'll start with Vista Colony. I'd like to report that the light is at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully it's not a train coming the other way. But
train wreck, yeah.
The pumps and motors are being installed today. The piping, the electrical work is scheduled to be started next week. So hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks, those pumps will start up and start pumping that water, the groundwater behind the houses in Vista Colony. We also have ordered the pipe to go ahead and pipe in some of those ditches. So as soon as the pumps start, we can go ahead and put the pipe in the ditches and pipe those ditches. Some of the maintenance that we've also have done, we've cleared the vegetation out of, cut it back out of the ditch on the bypass from Villa Dunes down to Hollowell Street in anticipation. DOT told us again yesterday they were going to come in and clean the rest of the ditch out. Now, all the ditches have been cleaned in the Memorial Wrightsville Avenue section of town. They finished that on Tuesday. Yesterday, they went and cleared the ditch down next to Station 21, and today they're working on the ditch at Forest Street. As soon as we finish the one side, we've got permission from the golf course to go on their property and finish cleaning out some of it to the end. So, as far as we can. So that's the maintenance that we've done so far in.
That's right. That's a huge stand of Phragmites down at the end of that Forest Street ditch. I mean,
we won't be able to go that far down. We won't be able to do the whole ditch all the way out to the sound, but we'll go as far as we can.
and your Wrightsville and Memorial look very good. I mean, they've been hard at work.
Thank you.
To continue on with the golf links, Mr. Toth had mentioned this morning during his public comment that the homeowners association had done their part in getting the ditch cleaned out there. We sent a letter to Ben Bridgers, the general manager, detailing what the expectations were from the town, from the property owners association, and from him, the general manager of the course, as we understood it. He has committed to getting the ditch and the culvert put in place, the one that we've referenced before that's been covered up. However, he is waiting on capital money to open up from corporate. And he and I are, I'm hoping, we'll be able to, he's been out of town, get together tomorrow, or excuse me, Friday, if not first part of the week, to continue to push to get that done.
Can we stress that the deadline should be before the rainy spring season starts?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's an illegal closure to begin with.
That's right.
I think we're playing very nicely, but they need to get it done before waiting for capital money. There needs to be a deadline at some point that you got to bring back.
Right. And I will get that out of them when we meet again, hopefully Friday. A little more on stormwater. We've Nags Head Pond. We were able to get we'll be putting a project out soon. Actually coming before the board because it wasn't approved. It wasn't an approved project in the stormwater funds, but it's what we had talked about getting we do have the right elevation. We did have that survey to continue to better grade swales to get the water out under the bypass. That's in the process now. We have to date and budgeted $200,000 in stormwater funds. We have a total of $115,000 remaining. Some of that would be planned for Nags Head Pond. Some of that is planned for the culvert at Dirty Dicks and Nags Head Realty. We are purchasing some pipe to put in the ditches in the Vista Colony neighborhood. I believe those have been purchased, so we'll be, as I've told you before, in conjunction with that groundwater, and go ahead and get those ditches closed. And the other outstanding encumbrance that we're planning on is putting the culvert under at Barnes Street, and we're just waiting for DOT's hydrology study to come back to say that it's permissible for us to be able to do that. And that is where we are.
One more question about stormwater. I'd like for somebody to take a look at a site plan that was for the old movie theater. They've gone in and torn away part of their retention pond. As part of the site plan, a retention pond had to be put in. They've gone in and torn out that retention pond so that all the water just flows straight into the right-of-way without living by the site plan of the retention pond. And that's dumping more stress so that the water's not being held on a commercial site plan as it's supposed to be.
Seems like there would be a provision for an overflow once the pond got to a certain.
There is a provision for an overflow, but what's going in is somebody, and you can tell.
Taking that out.
And nobody seems to have done anything, so I'm bringing it forward to have that checked, because you can obviously see where the pond, and I saw it when it first occurred, and nobody.
You're talking about on the bypass, right?
I'm talking about on the bypass, right there on the southwest corner is the retention pond from the parking lot. And it's been torn away so that the water, when it goes to the retention pond, just flows straight out into the swale, which is overburdening the carrying capacity and causing more
Right.
flooding problems.
We'll have it, we'll report back to you on that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question, though. I know we're spending the money, probably the stormwater money, as fast as it's coming in, and I know that you're looking at a $200,000 project if you get approval for the red drum outlet.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we would just have to,
Budget it for next fiscal year.
so we really are not looking for the extension of that this summer?
No,
I mean,
ma'am.
not until fall.
That's correct.
Cliff, excuse me, on the Nags Head Pond, have y'all had complaints about the pond and drainage?
Well, the pond, we have, it's a private property, that pond is owned by private property owners. Yes, we have had many concerns and complaints expressed to us, but when we explored and researched and tried to find ways to help with that, we quickly realized DWQ was not going to allow us to convey that water into a public conveyance, so.
They could clean up that water a lot if they put an aerator in there.
That's true.
They could clean it up. But when you're talking about Nags Head Pond, you're talking about the public.
I'm talking about the right-of-way off of the streets.
Okay.
The town's right, it's just.
And I guess that's my question is, has that been an issue? Because I was back there, had occasion to be back there several times in some pretty severe rains, and it looked like it had good flow, really.
There's a section, when you drive straight in on Oak Knoll, that seems to be okay. It's when Windjammer comes in, back towards, have I got them backwards?
Windjammer is Northridge.
Not Windjammer, Waterside, thank you. When Waterside comes in and connects, it's just that section there, and that's all we're talking about, regrading and reswell.
So a fairly small project.
Very small project.
Thank you.
We had some concern when County Manager Bobby Outen told us that the county would start collecting tipping fees on January 1st for the bulk debris that we carried over to the county. He, as well as the Deputy the town attorney for Kettle Hills, and I met, and he has agreed to delay the collection of that tipping fee until July 1st. So that gives us time at a board retreat coming up next week to talk about how we adapt to that. And staff will present to you some options on some choices you might have to be able to adapt to that. But he did delay it until July 1st, so it won't affect this year's budget. We have a resolution before you in support of the North Carolina Coastal Caucus. This was, I think, for those that were at the North Carolina Beach and Inlet Waterways Association, the idea came from there that we needed to get our local representatives to kind of nudge them to form a coastal caucus to deal with all of the issues that are specific to the coast. This resolution does that. There has been wide support all up and down the coast for this. I believe the Outer Banks Chamber has signed this. I'm not sure if it's come before the Visitors Bureau.
We meet tomorrow.
Okay.
Hopefully it's on there.
But this resolution, we've been asked through Harry Simmons, I believe, with Beach and Inlet Waterways to consider nudging our legislators to form a caucus. And I believe Mr. White mentioned that as well this morning.
I think you said that the Dare Republican Party is going to encourage legislators to do the same, and it certainly seems like it would help our folks.
I'd ask you to adopt this resolution.
Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
The North Carolina Beach and Inlet Waterways Association will have its spring meeting again this year for the second time at Jeanette's Pier. We asking the board to consider a support of a sponsorship to couple with Bobby Outen. Asked if we and Kilda Hills would be agreeable to going into a $5,500 sponsorship for the Monday night reception. This is what we have budgeted for. This is $500. It's about $1,800 a piece. I would need to ask the board to authorize another $505 for a total of $1,050. The remaining $750 would come in the way of an in-kind sponsorship of the facility. As you know, we get a use of Jeanette's Pier, one for use of Jeanette's Pier yearly, so that would come off of our sponsorship. So funds have been identified. We had budgeted some money for a facilitator for the board retreat, which we aren't going to be spending, so those funds are available if you agree to transfer those and sponsor.
I'm amenable to that.
I have a question, Cliff. Is it just, my computer died. Is it just Killable Hills and Nags Head and the county that are members?
No.
No.
No, I think Duck is now a member. Manio has been in the past. I think.
Every municipality in Dare County is a member, if I may.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
It's a Kinhawk.
Okay, so refresh my memory again, because you and I talked about this. Who is participating in, so it's Killable Hills, Dare County, and us that would be participating in the
$5,500 sponsorship.
Right, and the other towns, you don't know what they're doing?
No, I do believe, though, that last year they did sponsor.
They did some kind of.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Either Duck or Southern Shores One has already done a sponsorship, looking at the list.
Okay.
One or the other of them has already done that. I've seen that.
My only hitch to this is that, you know, we are giving up our one free use of the pier. And if this is the least expensive way we can do this, then it's probably the best way.
Okay.
So, I want us to remember that, though.
Entertain a motion, then?
So moved.
Second.
And I'll make a comment, we get it back with all the hotel rooms that are gonna be filled.
Do you hear that, tourism board?
They'll be staying in Nags Head. They will not be staying in, they're pretty much gonna be staying in Nags Head because it's coming in March.
Yeah.
So the hotels will be open.
Yeah.
Most of the hoteliers have been very gracious about adopting state rates.
Oh, good.
So it's
that's
been,
good.
so people, you should see them in our restaurants and in our hotels.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Ask the fire chief to come up and talk about the prescribed burns, as well as to let you and talk about the insurance rating that's coming up here soon.
Thank you. Mayor, Board, it was my intention to inform you about the National Park Service burn that you probably have seen released in the media recently, but I found out recently that they've canceled that burn. And so the National Park Service will not be hosting a Body Island burn this year, nor will they be providing an informational public meeting on January 17th, Thursday, at the fire station. So that's just an FYI, not only for you, but for the listening public. I did want to speak to you about a burn that will be going on, and that's the prescribed burn of the Soundside Marsh in Nags Head Woods. The town of Killable Hills, Nags Head, Nature Conservancy, and North Carolina Forestry have partnered in the past. And you remember, I'm sure in 2012, we conducted some burns of Nature Conservancy property, and those prescribed burns went very well. It was an accumulative 200-plus acres of marsh grass that was burned, and we took that out of the cycle of fire. Should we have an uncontrolled incident, then that fuel was not subject to causing any further damage to the woods. Additionally, last year we created a fuel buffer zone on Wellfield Road leading back to the sound. So through mechanical fuel removal, we were able to protect some of those areas, residential areas, not only from a fire in the woods, but from a residential fire that may in fact threaten the woods. As I listened to your discussion earlier about the SCD-80, I thought how well this dovetailed in with the protection of the maritime forest. And this year, the Nature Conservancy and some private property owners, and you can see some properties up on your screen, have agreed to permit the North Carolina Forestry Service to conduct some prescribed burns in these areas. And they're all private properties, and two of the properties do lie in Nags Head. And I think you can probably basically see the red outlined areas, and this is the former Paul Shaver property, and so this is part of that property that butts up to that boundary line. And I don't know this new property owner, but that area will be burned. And this is pretty much the town line right in this area. And this area, which extends up a little bit farther, you can't see. If the wind and weather cooperate between January 30th and March 15th, we will hopefully provide some boots on the ground, and the North Carolina Forestry Service will burn these areas. It's an extremely effective way to reduce fuels, to create that buffer zone. And all of the homeowners in this area, there's a house there, there are 2 houses here, are very appreciative of the effort, and they're looking forward to that. It is a very safe and inexpensive method of reducing fuels. And it's the only preventive method that we know of. It's kind of controversial because you're actually using fire to prevent fire. So again, it's been used nationally and has good success rates. There may be some smoke in the area on the day that we burn. There may be some temporary road closures back in Nags Head Woods on the road, and some of the trails in the Nature Conservancy may be closed as a result of that effort. But it should be temporary at best. Again, we're looking forward to that. The appropriate forestry staff will be on location. Some marsh masters are now out in the woods setting up fire lines. You may see a helicopter in the area dropping some incendiary devices to set the marsh on fire during the burn. You may see firefighters, and I will tell you that the Nags Head Fire Department will be on location in the woods to protect the residential structures that are down there. So we have that agreement and commitment to the people that agreed to these projects. But that's a general overview of the prescribed burn that we hope will take place sometime this winter, weather permitting. But I'll answer any questions you might have about that. Yes.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Kevin, let me go back to Body Island. I know Body Island is scheduled to reopen sometime mid-April. Was that one of the reasons they delayed fire down that way?
I assume you mean the lighthouse.
The lighthouse, yeah.
And I'm really not sure the reasons that they decided not to burn. I know that they had previously discussed burning that unit west of NC-12 down to the Navy Tower Road, and that would not involve the lighthouse property. So I really don't know, and I'd have to follow up and find out why. But I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you.
And what is the optimal weather that you're looking for between, I think you said January 30th to March 15th?
Well, typically what kicks that whole series or that consideration off is you need a heavy freeze. You need a hard freeze to kill the vegetation. Then it starts to dry. You know, we have these more arid conditions. There's not as much rain, so the fuel's dry, and then we're able to burn. Typically, with all of these sound front burns, we're going to want some type of easterly component to the wind, so the smoke will blow away from us. A light or non-existent wind is probably acceptable as well, but you know, an easterly wind to blow it away would be and temperature really doesn't matter too much, but you want the wind to carry the smoke up and away, so it dissipates pretty quickly.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great.
And then the insurance rating.
As if there's not enough going on January 31st, the North Carolina Department of Insurance State Fire Marshal's Office will be down to do a fire inspection of the fire services in Nags Head. They'll be going around to each fire station, looking over training records, looking over equipment and apparatus, and the inspector has given us a checklist of items that he would like prior to his arrival. We've gone through several 9S inspections before, and it's the most basic inspection. But the inspector has requested that we provide a resolution for approval of insurance district boundaries. And so the document that you have before you is nothing more than some language, resolution language that includes all of the specific information that describes the fire insurance district boundaries of the town of Nags Head. And this was taken directly from the town charter by the town clerk. And I will not read this to you because it's pretty excessive and elaborate, but this is something that the inspector, who will be here on January 31st, would like to have and is required to have in order to move us to the next stage of the inspection. So I would request your consideration to review and approve this resolution.
I just have a dumb question. It references the Dare County Shrine Club on Roanoke Island. I mean, it talks an awful lot about Roanoke Island, and I understand we have an ETJ, but I didn't think it included the Shrine Club and Roanoke Island. Not to throw a kink in the works, but
Right.
I'm reading
Absolutely.
in the body of the text.
So this is on our charter.
I'll get somebody to explain it to me at some point in time then.
I apologize for not having an answer. I did not look at that, and I see what you're referring to right now. Well, then I would ask you not to consider this for adoption right now. And I will take this back and review this, and I will.
It was just a curiosity point. I understand the town charter, but I'm not quite sure why we talk about in our charter the Dare County Shrine Club.
Right.
Well, I even mentioned, sorry, what, Kevin, what I suggest, and I guess, Carolyn, you did get this from the charter, is allow our attorney to give us the metes and bounds of Nags Head, where we begin, where we end, and that would be the only change in the resolution, because basically, the first paragraph is okay. When do you have to have it? Because remember, we don't meet again in
Correct.
January, and I don't want to hold up what the inspector wants due to the incorrect metes and bounds.
Well, January 31st, however, I'm wondering if we might delete that portion of the narrative that's in there and just say the town of Nags Head. And I don't know if it really doesn't require it to be so specific, but if we might delete that and say the town of Nags Head.
As referenced by the town charter.
Right. And maybe then we could dispense with all of that.
Does the attorney have any comments on this? I mean, it looks like a legal document to
I'm still
me.
having trouble finding the reference to the shrine.
Let me try to bail the fire chief out on this. This document.
I didn't know there was a second
that the
page.
town clerk came up with
I hadn't seen the back page.
was a set of boundaries used probably 50 years ago, 60 years ago for the fire district for the town of Nags Head. Now, I don't know why that's in here. I can remember before looking at this and trying to figure out why that was done. It really didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But when he came to do the inspection, I said it is the legal boundaries. Our fire district is the legal boundaries of the town of Nags Head. Plain and simple. It's all part of the tax district. It's all the same. So he accepted that at the time. But I know what he's talking about because they want a resolution passed by this board, and so he can hand them that piece of paper saying, my fire district is the following. So if you just put in there the legal bounds of town of Nags Head.
The first sentence of this document.
That's all you need.
I'm agreeable to that. It just scares me to
Yeah,
adopt a resolution.
that's probably 50 or 60 years old.
And it may even be before the town was incorporated.
Yeah. That's probably the old,
Because the tax district.
sanitation district or something?
Well, and the old tax voting district actually included Wanches at one point, so I'm scared that we've gone back way too far.
So can we just make it
The legal boundaries of the town of
like
Nags
Doug said? Yeah.
Let's start being simple rather than.
Right there? Can we end it right there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
That eliminates a lot of words too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then we're clean and green.
Entertain a motion?
And as far as that inspector goes, the state, from the state fire marshal's office, which is the Department of Insurance, that's all he wants is something for his record.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
not a real property lawyer, looking at this for the first time. But townships and the town of Nags Head are different things.
Right.
This is this is the meets and bounds description from the charter. And I would say if you're going to try and reduce it and simplify it, you would change the boundaries of the town of Nags Head rather than Nags Head Township, because Nags Head Township, if Nags Head Township was the Nags Head boundaries, they'd have said Nags Head is Nags Head Township. So I think that it's very likely that those are different
And wasn't
boundaries.
that a county, wasn't that the old townships, wasn't that used as a
Township
county?
was before we incorporated, and this references the township, which did include part of Roanoke Island.
Right.
And this is not necessarily the legal boundaries of Nags Head as it exists today.
Ben, can you suggest some wording that just takes care of this? Just within the boundaries of Nags Head?
Boundaries of the town of Nags Head as defined in its charter. I mean, the boundaries, the jurisdictional boundaries of the town of Nags Head are the boundaries as defined, I would say, in its charter as amended from time to time.
Everybody satisfied with that one?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that makes a whole lot of sense now, because the old townships, because they used to talk about the Nags Head Township. Well, I voted in the Nags Head Township, and I'm going, well, you don't vote in Nags Head, so no, the old Nags Head Township. I mean, that was the way the districts were set up?
That's right.
Townships still do exist and are used in property description language, and I believe they related primarily to where your voting areas were.
Do y'all have enough information to do our resolution? Good. A motion?
Move to adopt as amended.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And finally, just for your information, the town will be closed this Monday, I think for the first time, in observance of Martin Luther King holiday. Therefore, there will be no residential or commercial trash pickup on Monday. However, trash collection will resume on Tuesday, January 22nd, for all residential and commercial routes.
Hope everybody enjoys the holiday. Thank you. Commissioner's agenda. Commissioner Cahoon, would you like to start off?
Yes, last week, at the request of Max Dutton, and we had talked last summer about bicycle safety for all of our workers, college students that come in from out of town that may live with relatives for the summer, foreign students, anybody that works in the areas of Nags Head and the Outer Banks, about bicycle safety, with there being numbers of hit and runs, people just getting hurt. There's been a lot of accidents in Corolla. And we put together a little working group of business owners, and I invited the manager and the police chief to come in since the meeting was being held in Nags Head. And we're trying to get some sort of bicycle safety program that employers have responsibility in this to educate their workers or their relatives or whomever rides a bicycle across the Baum Bridge every day in the afternoon. I see a young man doing that. And we're trying to get people educated about lights, front and back, strobes, helmets, and that program's probably going to evolve and become more safety-oriented and outlined. We're not trying to create this big bureaucracy. That's not our goal. DOT has been contacted by a couple of the people on that group. They presented this huge budget thing. That's not where most of us are interested in going. We're interested in just making sure that the people that come to the work on the Outer Banks or that live on the Outer Banks that ride, say, for an example, Collington Road every day, have a place to get some bicycle safety instructions, as well as perhaps get some local businesses to work with putting lights and reflectors on bicycles. And I just wanted to make you aware that that was going on. There'll be another meeting on the 22nd, I believe. And there have been representatives of any number of different businesses, from Kitty Hawk Kites to Food Line to Harris Teeter, myself, I can't remember, radio stations there. And we're talking about possibly utilizing, since most everybody is a member of Channel 20, Mayor Pro Tem, and the audiovisual equipment there is making a safety DVD that can be distributed to businesses so that they can educate as well on their own people that come in, regardless of what time of year it is, whether it's now And we're also talking about having people on the video that are multilingual that can translate the safety video. But there are a number of people that ride bicycles to work in our local community year-round, and we just want to try to set up some safety courses. We've done, you know, the school safety bicycle course, but perhaps the towns work together jointly through the police departments just to hold a safety course for this particular time on this particular day, or, you know, work with individual businesses to educate people on how to better navigate. We have two thoroughfares, and we just want everybody to be safe. So that's where we are with that. And I just wanted to make this board aware that that was going on. And we're going to have DOT attend some of the meetings. They've already committed that they would with their bicycle safety program. But some of what they're doing doesn't necessarily fit us because we're not a totally urban area. But the goal is to make the Outer Banks safer for people that work and live here, that, you know, are out riding their bicycle, that perhaps you don't want to ride on 158 against traffic without a helmet or a light on your bike. So that's the goal, is bicycle safety throughout the Outer Banks.
Great idea and much needed, especially after our past.
We have accidents every year, and we're just, I'm, as a business owner, want to educate any of my employees that work, including myself, who doesn't really like to wear a helmet but need to, probably if I'm going to ride the bicycle in the summertime. But that's the goal, is to just increase safety throughout the area.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Before you leave that subject. Within the, and I'm assuming your group is pretty much talking about riding either on the beach road or the bypass.
We're talking about the roads in Dare County, either Highway 12 and 158, or in Currituck County, Highway 12.
Okay.
Which goes all the way up to, or on Harris Island, which is Highway 12, so it includes, and on Roanoke Island, whether it's 64.
Okay, so you're taking in,
We're encompassing, we're trying to make it an Outer Banks area. I'll admit nobody from Hyde County has really participated about Ocracoke, but that's the goal, is to try to improve safety. And like I say, it occurred to me as Max and I were talking, that I observe a young man every afternoon at 3 o'clock leaving Manio, riding his bike to come to work somewhere in Nags Head. And this time of year, 3 o'clock, before he gets really to where he's going, it's dark. So there's a need for some safety.
I would just encourage, because I do see and have seen, and the foreign students as well as others, riding the multi-use paths. Excuse me. So I know there's bicyclists. I mean, I ride the multi-use path on the beach road. But I would hope that, and which we encourage multi-use on those paths, that's why they're called that. In some of your education that you do, is if the multi-use paths are a venue for the cyclist, that they are reminded that it is not a bike path, that it is, you need to watch out for those slower, the mother with a stroller or the walker or the jogger. So if that might be worked into, because there is a lot of bicycles on that path.
And whatever we come up with, we're going to ask to have put on the Visitors Bureau website. Just so you know. And we're in the process of talking, you know, the Visitors Bureau already has maps. We're talking about taking some of those maps and pointing out where people should cross highways, like at stoplights, instead of just darting across and using the middle lane. So there's a lot of facets that go into it.
It's good.
The lighting is an important part of that as well, because a biker at night on the beach road is just about invisible.
Well, and I met one coming down 158 last week. If he hadn't had a strobe and he was coming against traffic, not with traffic, I still wouldn't have seen him, so thank goodness. But, so, thank you.
Anything else on your
One other thing, Cliff, you mentioned trash. I think it would behoove us, when we have our trash schedules on Channel 20, not to keep having the same one. We've got summer schedule and a winter schedule. Right now, we should only have our winter schedule on Channel 20, and in summer, we should only have our summer schedule. And if when it starts one delving into the other, that's when we should mix. But right now, we talk about, at the top of our trash schedule, it says summer. We're not in summer.
Okay.
So we need to diverge those two into separate presentations on Channel 20.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's all for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Sadler?
I'm assuming you're going to hit a couple of those things, such as the fog, or address some of those under your comments that were made this morning.
Cats was what I was going to hit.
Are you going
If you have anything.
Well, okay, I'll hit
You can
the
have
fog.
fog.
I'll hit the fog. Perry, thank you for bringing that forward. I agree with you totally. I could not even see the stop sign. It's a stop lights until you get right up on it. But I'm not sure if this is not something that we need to pass from Perry right on over to Chief Brinkley and let him make some suggestions, because I'm not aware of whatever laws that we could put out there that, for motorists. I mean,
I think it's just a common sense reminder,
Well,
turn on your
yeah.
headlights in the fog or the rain.
well,
And it doesn't hurt to leave them on all the time, actually.
no, it doesn't. Mine are in all the time, so I don't know what we can do, but maybe Cliff, you can ask
Yes, ma'am.
Kevin, other than a reminder that we should do this. In particular, January is known for 17 days of fog. So, I am going to ask that the board consider appointing one of our members who is not here today. That's when you get appointed, Susie Walters, to take my position on the Jeanette's Peer Advisory Committee. She has accepted without being appointed, and I feel that this is a meeting, probably the schedule is good for her. This is, quarterly, and I think that some fresh blood there will be good. So if that is okay.
Does that suit everybody?
And her first meeting is the 23rd of this month. Remind you, Susie. Thank you. That's all I
Right
have.
in there. Good, good. Well, thank you very much for your service on Jeanette's Pier.
It's been a pleasure, Bob.
It's a big deal.
Hey, it's built, I've been there since the dream, and I'm just really happy that it has come to fruition, and kind of the jewel right there of Whalebone Junction.
It's a big deal. Mayor Pro Tem?
Not a thing, Mayor.
I have a couple of items, and I appreciate Mr. Ratzenberger reminding me to mention Captain Al Hibbs. Al served his country in World War II, and he passed away this past last week, I guess it was. He also served the town of Nags Head for at least 20 years, and probably spent a good portion of that time on the planning board. But he was a true community servant, and he will be sorely missed. His service is Thursday from 4 to 7 at Gallup. There's visitation.
Did you say service?
Visitation.
Visitation.
Sorry.
I
said both.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ms. Hibb reminded me that he will be buried in Arlington.
Arlington,
later.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. An honor well deserved.
He was an excellent chairman of the Board of Adjustments for close to 2 decades. He was put on there in the early 90s. After he left the planning board, he went to the Board of
I
Adjustments.
served with him on that board.
Also under my agenda, I will make a request to enter into closed session to review our closed session minutes for July through December 2012. That's in accordance with GS 143-318.11 parentheses A parentheses 1. And this is just to make open what we can make open, to continue our transparency. We do have we'll make note of an upcoming Board of Commissioners retreat. The retreat is set January 24th and 25th. And it's a rental house to be determined. But we will determine that early this week and let everybody know and get it out to the press. Sorry, that's me. And the public is welcome at that. as well as the press. CSI, I did want to make note again that UNC Coastal Studies Institute will be having an open house on February 2nd from 1 to 3 for the public. I would encourage everybody to go out and take a look. It really is an amazing facility, and Dare County should be very proud. It's been a long time coming, and again, Senator Bass Knight was the moving force behind it. Last but not least, feral cats. This is a topic that we've certainly discussed before. I want to disclose that I own 4 cats. Maybe I should recuse myself.
Yeah.
Feeling of the board? Personally, I feel like if you're going to have a cat, you need to take care of the cat and keep it inside. And the problem with feral cats is there are health issues there. And if you get bit by a feral cat, which I've had an employee or a subcontractor's employee bitten, they can't always catch the cat. They have to go through the whole rabies series, and it's not a fun series of shots to go through. So that's my concern, I guess. Certainly interested in keeping cats alive in general. Any thoughts, ideas?
Well, like we discussed earlier, when this isn't the first time this issue has come to before us, and we were talking earlier that I revert back to the time that the contractor was bit behind right over in the village. We got on the bandwagon along with other towns in the county about feral cats, about the feral cat conditions, and that it was and had become a health hazard. Now, I'm all for saving the cats and having a no-kill shelter and so on and so forth, but this is one of those issues that it's a no-win issue, to tell you the truth. The feral cats are going to have to be dealt with. They would have to be captured. He was talking about the possibility of getting a grant to have them spayed or neutered. I'm not so sure where the town would fit in the overall scheme of things. We certainly cannot allow feral cats to run, do their thing in the town of Nags Head. It just can't be done. We have to actually, feral cats should be captured and I mean, there's nothing to say that they're not sick. Some of them aren't sick. Some of them are. It's a one thing. It's like a snowball. It's a snowball effect. So I don't know how. I mean, I don't know exactly what we can do other than the fact of, handle it the same way that our rules and regulations now handle feral cats, which of course is what they're trying to get away from, because they go to the shelter and then they're put down. I don't know that there is an answer.
I think the question would be to find out is if there is a program that will pay to have them spayed and neutered. That would be the question that would need to be brought back to us that we can't solve today. I mean, I appreciate Lewis's comments, but we need to contact the SPCA and find out if there is a program, how they handle it, and that kind of stuff.
And I don't know anything about the no-kill shelter. Doug, you mentioned a no-kill shelter.
There's a no-kill shelter in Kitty Hawk. That's where we got our last cat. Feline Hope. That's it. Feline Hope. And I don't know how. I know that some of those cats, because we were in there when we got our last one. I know that some of those cats were wild. I mean, I know that they were, just they wouldn't come to you. And basically, I got one of them. But I mean, it turned out to be a good cat. But that's a no-kill shelter, and they exist off of donations, and that's the kind of facility that I was recommending, that they go to. However, I'm not so sure that there aren't hundreds, possibly thousands of cats around, which
Go to KFC when you're cooking.
it's yeah. So I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but. I don't think the town can answer the question.
Well, we will all continue to personally adopt cats, I'm sure, and
some of us will
take care of part of that problem. Y'all, this time, I think it's appropriate for us to enter a closed session to review the closed meeting minutes, closed session minutes in accordance with GS 143-318.11A1. And I'll make that motion that we do so.
But before you do, Mr. Mayor, that does not, what we've just discussed does not preclude you coming back with some kind of offer or plan or something like that on this cat situation, before we, that's.
Sure, please, if you'll come up and we'll get it on record.
I apologize for not realizing the history of the feral cats and realizing it would be so controversial on it. I think that there's one thing that everybody agrees with. I got involved with feeding 4 of them up at East Forest because my neighbor Bonnie Sanderson is and then I started worrying about the population of them. I'm not a masochist. 4 is one thing, I don't want 40. So I think we all agree we want to control the population of them. And I said, let's fix them, give them shots so they don't have disease, and then releasing them. And I don't know, I'm not a vet, so I don't know how frequently they have to get rabies shots or, feeding them doesn't seem to be a problem. There's a heck of a lot of people who are feeding them. But
it's a lot easier to feed them than it is to fix them and give them shots and take care of them.
Yeah, I'll give you my principle. Since I'm feeding 4 of them, I'll take responsibility for the 4 that I'm feeding. I'll take them down to Dr. Grossman. He will snip their ear or whatever he does, fix them, and give them shots, okay? And maybe I can get the policewoman, Laura, to help me make sure I get all 4 of them, okay? And I think maybe that's the principle. If you feed them, you got to make sure they're fixed.
Well, if you feed them, you also got to take care of them. I mean, that's
what I mean.
The responsibility, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Renee, you gotta get your kitty fixed.
We appreciate your coming and your thoughts on it.
Thank you very much.
It's not an easy issue.
Just proliferate like bunnies.
I'll make
Second.
Make that motion to go in closed session. We have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. We're going to go to a brief closed session. We're going to come back into open session after a brief closed session. We didn't take any action in closed session, so I'm not going to ask anybody to report out. We decided to look at our closed minutes review at our next meeting. No further business to come before us.